Rhonda, will you call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Reed?
Here.
Regent Adley? Regent Chabert?
Who's here?
Senator Clatter? Regent DeVee?
Here.
Regent Ewing?
Here.
Regent Jewell?
Here.
Regent Levy?
Here.
Regent McDonald?
Here.
Regent Meyer?
Present.
Ms. Mirza?
Here.
Regent Perez? Regent Pryor? Regent Seal?
Here.
Regent Solomon?
Here.
Regent Temple?
Here.
Regent Tennyson?
Here.
Regent Wall? Well,
Wow.
I apologize.
No
Mr.
problem.
Williams? And Regent Wyatt? Do you have a quorum?
Thank you so much, Rhonda. Thank you so much, Rhonda. Members, you have the copies of the minutes from the March meeting. It's behind tab 2. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the March meeting. Moved by Chabert, second by Regent Temple. Any objection? Motion passes. Next, we move to the consent agenda. Swan, please proceed.
Certainly. Members, this is final rulemaking. This is rulemaking that you approved the initial start of that in March. This is to add the interest rates to the rules, which we are required by statute to do. That's the first part of the rulemaking. And then the second part of the rulemaking, as discussed prior, is to remove the requirement that START and START K-12 members provide Social Security numbers when they're requesting a disbursement. The advisory board has reviewed both of these portions of the rule, and they recommend approval of this consent agenda item.
You've heard the recommendation from Dr. Boutte. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? There's a motion and a second. Any objections? Any objections? So ordered.
Other business is simply to provide you an update on the 3 programs operated under LASSA programs for 529, the START Saving Program, the START K-12 program, and the Louisiana ABLE program. So this is investments as of 6/30/2019. And that concludes, unless there are questions.
Are there any questions? Thank you so much for the
Okay.
report. That concludes our meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. When I took over as chairman, I got with the commission and I asked that we wanted to start something called Spotlight on Systems and try and bring some students from each system at our board meetings to tell us a little bit about what they're doing, where they're at. And today we have 2 very special guests. And Mr. William June, I'm going to let our student member from LSU introduce the 2 LSU student members we're going to spotlight this month.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So today we have 2 LSU student athletes with us. First we got Skylar Mays. He's an incoming senior from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Played at U High before transferring to Finley Prep for his senior year. He's an academic honor roll with over a 4.0 GPA in pre-med, so we're really proud of his accomplishments on and off the court. Also have with us Marshall Graves, another incoming senior from Baton Rouge U High. Really excited about both of these guys being here today. Marshall's also a former walk-on, so really proud of his accomplishments and their accomplishments on the court over the last few seasons. So thanks for being here, guys.
Skylar, would you like to say a few words, please? Put his mic
Opportunity to be here and
In front of y'all and represent the best university in all of the United States, and I'm just happy to be here.
Marshall?
I'm definitely same thing. Blessed to be here. It's incredible. It's almost overwhelming. But I'm very thankful. Like I'm saying, from Louisiana kid, and I went to U High. Louisiana means a lot to me, and to have those 3 letters across my chest, that's extremely important. So I'm honored to be here.
Well, we want you to know how proud we are, and we're so glad to bring you along. My friend Will Wade, let me say something. When Will first came to LSU, we got to be close friends through a mutual friend, Rich Riley, who was at Nichols. He and Rich were graduate assistants at Clemson together. And he said, Mort, I really want you to meet this great guy that's coming to LSU. And every year I host the Nichols basketball team for a retreat at my hunt lodge in Woodville, and Will says, you mind if I bring them up there? And I got to bring these kids and to see what these kids are made of on and off the court. I really wanted to thank Coach Wade for bringing them, and we wanted to shine the spotlight on Louisiana doesn't only have great athletes, but we have great student athletes. And you two guys are the epitome of what we have in Louisiana, and especially at LSU. Coach Wade, why don't you say a couple of things?
You forgot about the team bonding experience, pushing the bus from your driveway.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
The bus couldn't make it in the driveway.
Yeah, well, Nichols came in 4 bags, they came in a whole car bus. Difference in the budget.
No, I want to thank all you guys for everything that you do for LSU. It means a lot for us and our team. You know, we talk about boot up, and that's because we play for the entire state of Louisiana. We represent the entire state of Louisiana, and we love representing Louisiana. So we appreciate all you guys do for our university and for funding for higher education for the flagship at LSU. So thank you for everything that you do for us.
Thank you all. We got a couple of certificates we'd like to give you and take a couple of pictures if you don't mind. And we'd like you to stay for just a second after. You want to come up? Yeah, sure. Alice, go ahead. Alice, you go. All right.
How you doing, Coach? I enjoy your success, and bring success to others.
Yes, sir.
Keep on keeping it.
Something you can put on your wall for a long time. Or, all right, let's take a picture some more.
Marty, did you tell him you used to be able to shoot a set shot?
Jump shot. I've seen it.
Oh, you
He gets over a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Coach, before you leave, we have one more thing. If you guys will hang on just for a second, and we're so very proud of you, you student athletes, so very proud of you. Coach Wade, I wanted to make sure that you were here because we need some assistance from you. We are retiring the jersey of one of LSU basketball's #1 fans, Carolyn Blanchard. Carolyn has served with distinction at the Board of Regents for 38 and a half years, so we had to put the .5 on the flowers, 38 on the jersey. Carolyn is a native of Vidalia, Louisiana. She started at Regents with when she was a mother of 2 small children. She has mothered over 50 board members and countless numbers of staff. She has a wealth of knowledge and resources. She's attentive to detail. She serves with great pride and distinction, and we will miss her dearly. We know that she will continue to do amazing things. Her grandkids and great-grandkids can't wait to have their mama all to themselves. So Carolyn, on behalf of the Board of Regents, we wanted to thank you for your tremendous service, and we wanted to surprise you. It's hard to surprise Carolyn, but I think we got her this time. I think we got her. So congratulations, Carolyn. Carolyn, will you make some comments at the table? She's not letting the basketball She's going to make some comments. Will you make some comments? Yes.
Ms. Carroll, would you like to make a couple of comments, please? They'll wait a minute.
So I hope I can make it through it. But anyway, I just wanted to, I never really get to talk to all the board members at the meetings because I'm so busy trying to make sure that their diet Dr. Peppers and sweet and salty peanut bars and baked chicken, things like that. So today I thought I would just, have a few prepared words to say to you all. I want to thank you, board members, for your confidence in me as your secretary and for your kind words today, and obviously the wonderful surprise. I've worked with every commissioner since the board came into existence, and I thank them as well. But I can't leave without thanking all the ladies in the office that have helped me over the years. These ladies are like office products. Yes, office products. They're like glue. As a group, they stick together and keep their divisions running smoothly. They're also like paper clips. Without them, things would not stay together. And they're also like scissors. Okay, sometimes they just want to cut up. Thank you, ladies, for helping me. And a special thanks to Harold for being by my side for almost 22 years. So thank you very much.
Ms. Carroll, just stay seated for a second. On behalf of the board, I can't thank you enough for all the times you got the diet Dr. Pepper, when you took care of us both with dyslexia, ADD, ADHD, and all other things that I got. You have been there for every board member, with a smile on your face every time, the times that you've called and reminded me, because you know I always forget. And that's something very special. That's something you've been doing for a long time. But I'd like to call on Bob Levy, who knows her probably better than anybody on this board, to say something, please.
Thanks for the heads up, Marty.
I wasn't going to let you.
These men and women don't know what you've done for this board and for the individual members, unless they've been there as long as I have. And we have been through terribly tough times. We've been through elation. But all the while, your professionalism, your courtesy, your individual kindnesses have been noted by everybody. My spouse, everyone else's spouse, always talks about, we met Carolyn finally. Wasn't she unbelievably nice? Carolyn, I don't know what to say after all these years. You've done more than Dr. Peppers for me. You have, I've watched you take under your wing, young and old, bright and not so bright, and made all of us feel like we were members of this board. And more than just a monthly or bi-monthly get-together, you have encouraged us, you've inspired us, you've led us. But most importantly, you've loved us, and we love you. Thank you for the best board secretary I've ever seen on any board. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you, Marshall and Skylar and Coach Wade. We really appreciate everything.
She gets to take another picture. The biggest fan ever of LSU basketball.
I didn't see the picture.
Pretty good.
Yep. And Miss Stacy, make sure they get an excused absence.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you all this season. Okay, moving right along, we're going to call the audit committee. Chairman, would you please call them to order?
I'd like to call the audit committee to order, and I will make a roll call while our auditors are coming forward. Audit committee members, T.J. Seal, chair, is here. Jacqueline Wyatt, Claudia Adley, Robert Levy. Here. Charles McDonald. Here. Darren Meir. Here. And Felix Wild.
Here.
And we have a quorum. Members of the board, we are going to take up 3 matters today in our presentation concerning the funding formula itself. We're going to review the audit charter, and we're going to review the year 2 of the internal audit plan. Concerning the audit charter, concerning the funding formula, the funding formula was not originally part of our audit plan, but in a meeting in March, we added that to the plan, and we have a report today as part of that. So I would like to go ahead and call on Laura Swallow to go ahead and make the presentation for today.
Good morning. Thank you. Kristen Burke is with me, and she's going to go through the funding formula audit, and then I'll take over and talk through the charter as well as the remaining year 2 proposed internal audit plan.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Burke. I'm a manager with Postal Wait in Netterville, and I've been the manager on our contract here with Board of Regents since we began. And I'm going to take you through what we did as far as the outcomes-based funding formula internal audit that we were performed. As Regent Seal said, through discussions with him, through discussions with Regent Seal, it was decided that we would present an audit to be included in our year 2 contract that would kick off the year 2 contract of our services of the funding formula, and we proposed that, and it was decided at the, I believe, April board meeting. And so to perform that, the formula audit that we did was focusing on the internal processes of the Board of Regents in addition to the internal controls. So not as in-depth of the inner workings of the formula itself, but what our internal processes were at the Board of Regents. To perform the audit, we obtained any documented policies and procedures. We interviewed key personnel to gain an understanding of the applicable processes involved in the overall formula process. We performed walkthroughs of their processes to gain a better understanding of them. And then we also assessed the audit process that's related to certain funding formula components. Based on our procedures, there were no high-risk observations identified. We only identified 2 observations, and they were of moderate risk to the organization based on our determination. We've included on this slide here a chart showing you the risk ratings for your reference. This will further explain what constitutes a moderate risk. During the course of our procedures, we identified a number of controls that were in place that were designed to mitigate risk, including the fact that there are several independent inputs that go into the formula that are obtained from external entities such as Southern Regional Education Board and College and University Professional Association. There are also validation checks that are run on the data that's self-reported by the institutions into the systems that go into the formula to ensure that clean data is coming in and processed in the formula. There's a use of database queries to perform portions of that calculation, which also increases efficiencies and mitigates risk of manipulation or errors in the formula. There are multi-level internal reviews that are performed on the formula itself and the results of those formulas, of the formula. There are audits performed on a number of the institution-reported inputs, such as those student credit hours. Then there's also the training that's provided via the annual summit. And additionally, we feel that independent third-party analysis performed by HCM Strategies that we heard from earlier today and we discussed at the board development session also serves as a control for the formula model and the process itself. And as we heard this morning, the formula model was assigned the highest category in their last assessment and also found to be aligned or partially aligned with best practices. As previously mentioned, there were 2 observations identified through our procedures. The first is related to a lack of a formally documented process or processes that will provide details on the inputs and the sources of information, specific calculations, and assigned roles and responsibilities related to all of the formula-related processes, and those are internal processes. The other observation we noted is the lack of a formal risk-based audit plan. However, it should be noted that at the time of our procedures, the audit and compliance team had already identified the need for a risk-based plan, and they had also begun the process of putting this together. We just had to note it as part of our report as it wasn't in place at the time of our procedures.
Kristen, what was the management response to those observations?
So for the first item with the documented policies and procedures, they will be creating a procedure manual to include detailed step-by-step processes related to the formula, and they anticipate that to be complete by next month.
Okay. I would like you to carry that on the agenda for each monthly meeting until we have that report.
Okay.
Please continue.
Yeah, and then the second one, as we previously mentioned, they were in the process of working on that risk-based audit plan, and it's ongoing right now, and I think they expect that to be complete by the end of this month. So that's also in the process of being completed.
Let me pause and see if there are questions from the committee or from the board, primarily concerning the classification of the risk as a moderate risk as opposed to a high risk. Just want to see if there's any concern or questions about that classification. I support that classification, but I want to make sure that if there are others who think that classification is inappropriate, we talk about it now. All right, please continue.
So in addition to the 2 noted observations, we just wanted to mention that we had just one additional best practice recommendation, which was just there's an opportunity to further automate the calculation of the formula or portions of it that are currently happening overall in Excel. There's just automation of the calculation itself. The total calculation would just help mitigate the risk of errors and that could lead to any issues of data integrity. Are there any other questions related to our audit process procedures?
Before you move on, I want to thank you for a very quick response. I only brought this issue up on March 11th, and you were able to modify the program, the audit schedule for the current year and include this audit in the current year and get a report to us at the time when we are considering the outcomes-based funding formula. And so we've added now good outside audit review to internal processes, and that makes me feel comfortable that everything is in order. Please continue with the internal audit charter review.
I'd just like to thank the Board of Regents management team. In order for us to be able to do that audit, we had to have their cooperation, and so they worked with us in very short order to make sure that they were responsive to our questions and to be available for interviews and walkthroughs. So we couldn't have done that without their cooperation. So we'll go to the charter now. As you can see on the slides, an internal audit charter is required under the Institute of Internal Auditors standards. The charter is a formal document that defines internal audit's purpose, authority, responsibility, and position within the organization. And so as we initially embarked on this internal audit journey, in May of 2018, we presented an internal audit for its charter for approval, and one of the things that was included in that charter is that it would be annually reviewed and reapproved by the internal audit committee. So we have reviewed that charter, and by and large, the charter is working very well, and it's allowing us to fulfill our mission. We do have one recommended change to the charter to align with internal audit best practices, and that would be that we change the reporting structure so that we would report administratively to the Commissioner of Higher Education. We would still continue to report functionally to the audit committee with this proposed change.
And what is the rationale for the change?
It really is to align with internal audit best practices. As you know, when we initially approved the charter in May of 2018, there were some changes that were going to be forthcoming in the commission rule, and so we wanted to make sure that that didn't impact our ability to come in and get started with our internal audit work. But now that Commissioner Reed has been in her role and we've been working with her throughout the course of this, we would suggest this to align with best practice.
Let me see if I can say that another way and see if you think it's still correct. So that you were not reporting to staff and management of the Board of Regents, changing this reporting line directly to the Commissioner gives the comfort that your report, your findings, your concerns, your objections wouldn't at some point be intercepted and blocked at the staff from reaching either the Commissioner or the Board of Regents. The direct reporting makes that line of communication not vulnerable.
The direct reporting certainly does enable that. Through the course of our work since May of 2018, we haven't encountered any situations in which we haven't been able to report our issues, our concerns, and our findings. So it's really just to align with those best practices to enable that for the future.
So, members of the committee, you've heard the recommendation that we make that review of our internal audit charter. Are there questions about that recommendation? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve that change in our internal audit charter. It's been moved by Mr. Levy, seconded by Mr. Meir. All in favor in the committee signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? No opposition. That motion carries, and the charter is now amended to include that provision.
Regent Seal?
Yes.
Regent Seal, do you mind if I ask, respectfully, I know I'm not on this committee, but do you mind if I go back to one question from the previous report? There was a best practice you recommended about further automating the way that the Excel documents work. Has anyone talked about the feasibility, the cost, the operational impact of doing such a thing? And do you have any thoughts around that you could share on how we would actually act on that best practice?
So that, we briefly talked about it whenever we had our exit conference following the completion of the audit, and it was discussed that it would be a largely financial increase that it would take to probably be able to automate all of the elements of what goes into the formula and the functions of the calculations. Also, I know the team has been really good with being able to provide quick reports to the institutions when they ask for any information, and so whatever system that we would be recommending would also have to have those capabilities. It's not just going to be kind of a running large formula, something, one step up outside of Excel. It would have to be a little bit more sophisticated than that. So it would take a larger, I think, budget to be able to perform that. How much, though, we hadn't gotten that far in the discussion, but it was just considered best practice.
We heard this morning the recommendation of HCM that we have some kind of hypothetical tool or interactive model that the institutions can interact with. If we went down a path of something like this, does it serve both of those priorities at the same time, or are they completely separate in the way that they would? I believe you were in the presentation this morning, right?
I was, and I think it would essentially, because if
it was designed the right way, it could.
It could be the one-stop shop for them to pull in their data. Mm-hmm. And I understand there's different systems set up, but maybe there could be just one user interface where they would be able to go to use all those self-reported data that they need to present and provide each year, but then also maybe pull down reports once the funding formula calculation has been performed.
Thank you.
Sure.
Regent Seal, this is your committee, but thank you for letting me ask that question.
Fine question, thank you, Regent Solomon. We now move on to the internal audit plan for the second year of the 3-year engagement.
So when we were last in front of the audit committee and we presented our year 2 internal audit plan, we weren't sure how much time and effort was going to be involved with the funding formula audit. So at that point in time, we said we would suggest doing that funding formula audit based on where that takes us and what that takes in terms of time. We'll come back following the completion of that audit and present a proposed internal audit plan for the remainder of year 2. So we do have that today, which this was based on our original risk assessment and some of the interviews that we completed in year 2 to update that risk assessment. So what we would propose would be to do an audit of personnel and HR processes across LOSFA, Board of Regents, and LUMCON. And they would each be 3 separate audits, but throughout that we would also find a way to package it so that across the board any leading practices could be identified, as well as if there are opportunities across the board to improve controls, to also be able to do that. And then in addition to that, we would continue to follow up on any year 1 internal audit findings, as well as any audit findings from the legislative auditor.
With regard to the budget that was adopted when the contract was let, are we on schedule and on budget for this audit activity?
I believe at this time we are on schedule for the year 2 remaining audit activities that are presented here.
So the remaining funds that were budgeted when the contract was signed are sufficient for the next year of operations?
At this time, they are. Now, as we go into year 3, we'll take a look at the risk assessment and evaluate, based on where we are, what we've already looked at, and what is still in some of those higher risk areas, what we would suggest, and at that point in time, we could reevaluate if the budget is still sufficient, but at this time, we feel comfortable that we're good for year 2.
Are there questions from members of the audit committee or members of the board on the proposed internal audit plan for the remainder of this contract year 2? Hearing none, I'll receive a motion that the proposed internal audit plan be adopted. It's been moved and seconded. Is there objection? Without objection, that motion carries. Is there any other matter to come before the audit committee?
Not from us.
Good. Thank you both for your presentation, and thank you again for the excellent way in which you work with our staff and keep us on track.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Members of the systems, would you please come up for this committee and take your seats? Again, I want to remind everybody to speak directly into the microphone when you're speaking. I might be able to get an exemption for that. Next, we're going to call, when members get up here, the Facilities and Profit Committee to order. And Regent Mayor, when people get here, call you committee order, please.
Thank you, Chairman Chabert. I'd like to call the Facilities and Properties Committee to order. Mr. Herring, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Chair Meyer?
Here.
Vice Chair Temple?
Here.
Regent David?
Here.
Regent Ewing?
Here.
Regent Jewell?
Here.
Regent Tennyson?
Here.
Regent Wild?
Here.
LSU representative?
Here.
UL representative?
Present.
LCTCS representative?
Here.
And Southern University representative. Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Herring. Could you please start our first item, which is the consent agenda?
Yes, sir. The first item are the small capital projects, and there's one small third-party project under the consent agenda that was approved since our previous meeting. If there are no questions on any of the projects, the senior staff recommends approval.
Members, you've heard the recommendation for the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by, motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any questions on the readiness? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Ayes have it. Moving on to Act number 959?
Yes, sir. This is a project with Nunez Community College. They are entering into a lease with St. Bernard Parish for a 13,500 square foot facility. The plan is to renovate the space so they can create an aerospace manufacturing program at the facility. The building already has large bays there, which will help them programmatically, and the renovation will include creation of classroom space, shop space, some student leisure areas, and conference room space. The institution won't incur any debt as a result of the project. It will be funded through grant funding, self-generated revenues, and potentially some parish funds if needed. And the senior staff recommends approval of this project as well.
Okay, so we've heard about Act 959 for the Nunez Community College. Can I get a motion to approve this agenda item? We have a motion and a second to approve. Any questions on the readiness? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Ayes have it. I'll turn it over to Mr. Herring for our other business.
Under other business, I just have a few updates for the board. Last meeting, I was asked about the status of Louisiana Tech's recovery. They chose two architectural firms. Tipton Associates was for residential facilities, the intramural, and other related items. Tim Brandon was chosen as the architect of record for the athletics facilities. The bids were received last week on the residential facilities. Once that is under contract, they're going to bid out the remaining non-athletic facilities. And then further down the road, athletics will be bid out. It's right now, it's in the preliminary stages of design with Tim Brandon. They did secure approval from the state to demolish the baseball field and other athletic facilities. The plan is to put the baseball field back where it was currently located. There was some uncertainty as to that. So as those projects move forward, I can update the board periodically as things get going. But they are making progress. Thank you. Secondly, higher ed did receive almost $18 million for deferred maintenance in fiscal year 1920. We're working with the Office of Facility Planning and Control to come up with an allocation of those funds. So I'll be able to update the board, hopefully by next meeting, on how those funds will be distributed. Higher ed also received $15 million for demolition of campus buildings. That's across all four systems. We have the ball rolling on that. We've chosen a few architects already, with more coming on board in the coming weeks. So we hope to have buildings coming down within the next several months. The next item, LumpCon and Hurricane Barry, they came out fairly unscathed. The main two issues, they were about to run out of diesel for the generators. We were able to get them diesel down there before that occurred, and they had about 4.5 feet of mud in the bottom lobby areas, but you know, they worked with their staff and the local fire department to get that cleaned up, and that was really the only major issues they had from the storm, so they came out fairly well on that. Next item, we're hosting a facility summit September 12th here in this building, where we're getting all our campus personnel together. The topic of discussion, we're going to have risk management here in the Governor's Office of Emergency Preparedness, just to kind of highlight some of the issues that have popped up that we noticed through the tech tornado damage. We just want to make sure our institutions are documenting things the way they need to for risk management purposes, and are prepared from an emergency standpoint for future emergencies. The last item, capital outlay visits. I've been sending you guys emails with calendar invites for visits that are in your area. You probably have not received all of these just yet, as I've just kind of hammered out the last few dates. So this is a schedule that I have now. We have a few more that I'll be scheduling over the next week or two. I think what I'll do is just send everybody a master list, so everybody will have all the dates in one email, and I'd like to encourage you to participate if you're able to. It's a good way to get out there and see what the campuses need from a capital perspective, and it's just good to put eyes on their needs. So,
yeah, we encourage everybody.
Chris,
yes, sir.
When there's a university in our area, I know we're invited to go and be there. I notice ULM in Monroe is not on the list. Is there going to be a capital outlay visit there?
I'm still working with some of these folks, we haven't got them all set up yet, so I
Yeah.
can definitely get one set up at ULM.
If you need any help, let me know. All campuses have great needs, there's no
Sure.
question.
Sure.
But we have great needs, and of course, I realize funding is limited. We could spend millions and millions more dollars. We got universities, roofs leaking, buildings in terrible condition because we haven't invested in the last few years. And I noticed we got, 15 million, tear them down. So what we do is let them get terrible condition. We spend 15 million, tear them down instead of, so we need to be working on the maintenance and deferred maintenance, and appreciate your effort on that part, okay? But we would like to host a meeting, capital outlay meeting at ULM.
Okay, good deal. I can get with Michael up there and make sure that happens.
Regent Human.
Do I understand you to say that you have to have architects for demolition?
We do. Some of them include abatement.
Is that a safety provision, or, I mean, I understand architects when you're building something. I didn't know we had architects that you employed when you were tearing something down.
Because most of these buildings are larger facilities. On the smaller items that are $10,000 to $30,000, $40,000, an architect's typically not necessary. But when you start getting into the larger facilities, the state requires an architect.
So it's required?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other business to come before, other new business?
No, sir, that's it.
Okay, thank you. As you can see, region members, our universities are still trying to find alternative ways for financing for some of their buildings outside of the normal processes, and we've seen that each month. So I am glad that Mr. Herring is also facilitating some of this. I also want to share with you that each month we're going to continue to bring to you issues of deferred maintenance on our campuses, because I know many of you have asked for that. But that's all I have to say. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So, motion and a second. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Marr. We're going to move on to the next committee, which is going to be Academic and Student Affairs. Regent Temple, would you call your committee to order, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to call the Academic Student Affairs Committee to order. Good morning. Good morning. Dr. Denby. Please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Regent Temple,
Here.
Regent David,
Here.
Regent Adley, Regent Jewell,
Here.
Regent Pryor,
Here.
Regent Solomon,
Here.
Regent Wyatt, LCTCS representative,
Here.
LSU representative,
Here.
Southern University representative, and University of Louisiana representative. Present. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Our first item on the consent agenda. Dr. Denby, please present this item.
Yes, sir. On the consent agenda, we have a request for reauthorization of 2 existing research units. One is the Center for Collaborative Nursing Research at Southeastern Louisiana University. This is a name change. The center was last approved in 2014 as the Center for Nursing Research and Education and Practice. And the second is the Epilepsy Center at the LSU Health Sciences Center in New Orleans. Also, we have the routine staff reports. If you have any questions on those, let me know. Otherwise, senior staff recommends that the committee approve the consent agenda.
Okay. Committee members, you've heard the recommendations for these items. Move to approve. Second? Second? Second. Okay. All right. All in favor? Aye. Okay. All right. Great. Motion passes. Next.
Yes, sir. Next, we have 3 letters of intent. The first one is a letter of intent from LSU for a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Film and Television. LSU wants to develop a professional arts degree program focusing on film and television. The intended degree would complement the recently implemented Bachelor of Arts in Screen Arts, but with a more clear focus in film and video production with supportive theater courses and co-curricular experiences. such as participation in the Student Film Festival and developing a feature film as a capstone project. Staff support it, but want to see more detail on the distinction between the BA and the BFA in the subsequent proposal. Second is a Master of Science in Population Health at Southeastern. The field of population health integrates clinical medicine and public health to analyze social structures that influence health, develop approaches to improve outcomes, and to promote effective practices that will reduce health care costs. Southeastern wants to develop a program that will be completely online except for a 3-day in-person immersion orientation. And finally, UNO asks to develop a proposal for a PhD in Justice Studies. The intended PhD in Justice Studies would be a broadly based interdisciplinary doctorate that would draw on faculty from liberal arts, education, and human development to help students build individual degree plans for the study of social justice, criminal justice, educational justice, or environmental justice. It is an idea that's uniquely suited to New Orleans, and staff would like to see a more clearly defined common foundation and administrative oversight plan in the proposal. But we do recommend that the committee approve the letters of intent to develop full proposals for those 3 programs.
All right, so members, you've heard the recommendations, but I think we do have a
Question?
Dr. Denby, can you tell me, how is it different, is the film program is being proposed at LSU, how does it differ from the one, for example, at UNO? Is it the UNO one is a BA and this is a BFA, and do we know what the differences are?
The difference is, this is a letter of intent right now, so
Right.
the proposal will expand on that, but the usual differences between a BA and a BFA is that there's more technical or professional action included in a BFA. BA includes more liberal arts electives in the program.
And it mentions that currently this program kind of exists inside the theater BA or BFA, right?
In the BA in theater, yes, sir. There's a component of this program that is already in theater.
Is there a thought, is there a concern around how this would impact the ongoing nature of the theater program, and how would it take students away from it, and how the students, I guess how the school plans to respond to that if there's a big shift from folks that are electing this theater path right now, but really are only there to get the film path? What does it mean for the theater path that's left?
One of the things that we look for a letter of intent, and especially for a proposal, is that sort of a plan. The theater program is strong enough so that it appears right now, but we don't have all of the counts, but that it could stand alone even with film taken out of it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And I'd also just like to ask something, the Justice Studies, where else, you said it was obviously unique in the New Orleans, area, but where else does something like that exist? And in general, when we do this, is it because there has been a push from students? Has it been a push from faculty, kind of, we need this in either case, in both cases?
Well, the answer is yes and yes. Sometimes it is a push from students. Sometimes it's a request from students who are strong in a concentration in a particular area, who would prefer to have a degree with that title on it because it's easier for them to make connections. In this particular one, I think it is coming more from the faculty than from the students, because this would be a doctoral program in liberal arts. But it does exist in other places in the country. Arizona State University, for example, has a huge Justice Studies Center that has bachelor's, master's, and doctoral programs. And
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question? Following up on Collis's question, are the other PhD programs in this field disconnected from their law schools?
yes, sir. This is not a law-oriented justice studies. It's more looking at at social justice or educational justice. It's almost connected with the master plan if you look at equity in education, that sort of thing. So it's looking at bringing about justice in society or bringing about justice outside of the law.
So the preparation, this would be sociology? And,
Yes, sir.
and, other like fields as opposed to law?
Yes, sir. Now, it's certainly related to the law, but it's not a law degree.
No, it's not. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Denby. So, members, you've heard the recommendation for the items. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
So move.
Second.
Second? Great. All in favor, aye? Aye. All opposed? Okay, ayes have it. Okay, motion passes. Next, program proposals. Cloud computing and paralegal studies at Delgado. Dr. Denby?
Yes, sir. Delgado asks to develop, asks to implement an Associate of Applied Science in Cloud Computing. This would be a 60-credit AAS in cloud computing, the first to be developed in a system-wide initiative to create a common cloud computing associate degree in collaboration with Amazon Web Services. Cloud computing is like regular, is like, sort of, like regular networking in computers on crack, because it also incorporates cloud technology, which enables convenient, on-demand access to a shared pool of resources and information, sort of like Office 365 that we use among the staff now. All 12 of the LCTCS colleges participated in the Amazon Web Services training, and they intend to develop an AAS, well, they tend to develop similar programs following the cloud computing plan, but tailored to their particular regional industry needs. All will have at least 9 courses with common student learning outcomes, including an embedded cloud computing credential, a certificate of technical studies, that prepares students to take the Amazon Web Services Cloud Practitioner exam for an industry-based certification. And the other degree that Delgado asks to be able to implement is an AAS in paralegal studies. The proposed AAS was developed in response to the articulated needs of the greater New Orleans workforce for more paralegal certification. It should appeal to both traditional and non-traditional students, as graduates can find work in a wide range of legal studies. Once the program is implemented, Delgado will seek accreditation through the American Bar Association. So senior staff recommends that the committee grant conditional approval of those 2 proposed degrees, but also that you authorize the Deputy or Associate Commissioner of Academic Affairs to review and approve similar AAS proposals in cloud computing as they come up from the LCTCS colleges as they are developed and submitted. They will follow the similar program. They will have some courses that are different for their region. That's our recommendation.
All right, so members, you've heard the recommendation for these items. Is there a motion to approve?
That's your question, Colin.
Yes, go ahead.
On the Amazon, on the cloud computing, how agnostic is the, how do I ask this question? It's developed in partnership with Amazon.
Right.
The skills that the students are going to take away, are they applicable on other platforms other than the Amazon Web Service platform?
Yes, sir.
They are.
Yes,
It's
it is.
led by Amazon, obviously, because they've got a need to fill their workforce, but the skills that the students take away can apply to Office 365 or whatever the other
Exactly.
competitors are.
Yes, sir. And Delgado is the first one to come up with this degree, or to come forward with this degree, because they have 9 of the 11 classes already in effect, and they have several instructors who are currently going through AWS certification to teach.
Great question. So, members, you've heard the recommendation. Any other question, comment, or can we move to approve? So moved. Move, okay. Second? Second, okay. Right. Any opposition, discussion, motion passes. Next proposal, UL Monroe and Northwestern, Dr. Denby.
Yes, sir. Undergraduate certificates are being proposed by UL in Monroe. These are certificates that allow students to earn a credential focused on a particular subject that complements their major or meets career needs. They can be completed during or after the bachelor's degree, and again, they require at least 18 hours with at least half of them at the upper level. ULM's proposed undergraduate certificate in computer programming is a 24-credit certificate with the Gen Ed Math Core as the primary prerequisite. After completing the 8 courses of the certificate, students will have met most of the qualifications required for an in IBM's recent description for entry-level programmers for its growing application development teams at IBM. Given job openings in the region, ULM expects strong demand from current students in non-computer related programs, military veterans seeking training opportunities, and current computer science majors seeking to gain employment prior to completing their degrees. The undergraduate certificate in unmanned aircraft systems management, or drone management, responds to students seeking functional competency in UAS management, including the coursework and skills to become an FAA certified drone pilot. The 18-credit certificate has an introduction to UAS course followed by 5 upper-level aviation courses that cover everything from UAS design to image interpretation, geospatial information, and UAS operations and aviation safety. This certificate will replace the original post-baccalaureate certificate in UAS management so that current undergraduates may complete it while continuing their regular major. Northwestern has developed a proposal for a new Master of Science in Computer Information Sciences. This proposed master will cover an array of topics in an online asynchronous program which will allow students to complete the degree on a schedule that works for them. It's a 33-credit program that has a strong curriculum with 9 required courses and 2 electives, and it emphasizes a combination of program management and technical courses along with practical real-world experience through a 2-part research project or thesis. And finally, Northwestern again is requesting, has developed a postmaster's certificate in adult gerontological acute care nurse practitioner, which will provide the didactic and clinical education for registered nurses or advanced practice registered nurses who already possess a graduate degree in nursing with a concentration other than acute care gerontological nursing practitioner to become one of those. The structure of the curriculum will vary depending on the coursework already completed. In the current Masters of Nursing at Northwestern, there are 5 concentrations. So a nurse can complete a master's with a concentration. This allows a master's level nurse to go on and get another qualification. The structure is much of the coursework will be available online or in a hybrid combination of on-site and online. And we recommend that the committee grant conditional approval to all of those proposed programs. Again, conditional approval means that we would request periodic progress reports until the programs demonstrate that they can be viable by the number of completers.
Okay. Members, you've heard the recommendation for these items. Any questions, comments? Okay. Motion to approve? So moved. All right, second? Second. Okay. Any opposition or discussion? No. Great, motion passes. Next, item 5. Dr. Denby, program proposal approval process pilot.
Supporting innovation and responsiveness in program development would be the goal for this pilot that we're asking for your permission to do. It would cut out 2 rounds of management board review while maintaining full campus and system reviews, as well as statewide chief academic officer input and feedback. We seek to waive the letter of intent requirement that's in Academic Affairs Policy 2.04 and move straight to the full proposal. So the process of this pilot would be the campus would submit a concept summary through their system chief academic officer, and we would circulate that to the statewide chief academic officers for input and feedback. Waiving the letter of intent would allow the campus to move straight on to the full proposal. So this campus summary would be sort of a mini letter of intent so that we could gather feedback and give it back to the campus for developing the proposal. But in addition, we would develop a revised, robust program proposal form that would try to clearly lay out all of the detail needed to seek verification of expected campus outcomes, campus level reviews, to address the sometimes extensive question and answer back and forth that's needed to understand a proposal, including a layout of the curriculum, the learning outcomes, and faculty and other resources. The proposal then would follow the regular 2.05 policy requirements and procedures, which would include an external review for graduate level programs. So you would see the actual proposal one time when it's done, instead of, as we currently do, sometimes it feels like we present a letter of intent and then turn around and present the proposal. So in situations where there are little or no resources required, this is the process that we would like to try and see if it would work. And so we request permission to go ahead and do that. We will develop a more robust proposal template and pass it and circulate it among the campuses and report to you as soon as we have something to report. But it'll be in 2020.
Okay, I was about to ask, what
Yes,
is
sir.
the time frame?
It will be 1 year. I mean,
Okay.
you will hear it, we'll go one way or the other in 2020.
Okay, so members, you've heard the motion to approve this item. Any objection, any discussion, any question? All right, motion to approve? Second?
So moved.
Okay.
Darren?
I'm waiting.
Blake?
All right, second. All right, so, motion passes. Dr. Denby, is there any other business?
I just wanted to let you know that the University of Louisiana at Lafayette is hosting BOR staff for a 4-hour admissions data training day for statewide and regional campuses in September. There will be sessions on minimum admissions criteria, student transcript systems and transcript evaluation, exceptions, and the audit process. And they will be presented by Lupe Lamadrid, Malin Baker from Planning, Research, and Performance, by Liz Bourgeois from Audit and Compliance, and Sharice Harrell from Information Technology. All of the campuses have said that they will be sending teams, and then we'll offer individual follow-up training if any campus requests it. But it should be an interesting day and helpful.
Great, great. I think we have a comment from Commissioner.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to acknowledge the work of the staff and certainly thank the board for the support. As you saw in these PowerPoint slides, the level of innovation that is coming forward with undergraduate certificates, computer science, STEM, drone computing, and this focus on continuous improvement and streamlining our work with this new pilot. I know Dr. Denby has been working with all of the systems, trying to make sure that we continue to ask the question, are we doing everything we can as effectively and as efficiently as possible to move this work forward? So I wanted to thank Dr. Denby and her team and acknowledge that innovation and good work. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, staff. So, do I have a motion to adjourn? All right, second. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Vice Chair Temple. Next, we move on to sponsored program. Regent Pettit.
TRP.
Nope, back more. You're too far ahead.
PRP.
Leaving.
We'll ask Regent Perez to call the meeting on, please.
I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll take a roll call, please.
Regent Adley. Regent Perez.
Here.
Regent David.
Here.
Regent Ewing.
Here.
Regent Levy.
Here.
Regent McDonald.
Here.
Regent Pryor.
Here.
Regent Tennyson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Good, thank you. And we have consent agenda items to review.
Yes, so today's PRP agenda is very brief, consisting only of those items that are contained within the consent agenda, which includes one academic degree granting institution initial application, an academic degree granting institution license renewal, and the expiration of a conditional license for Southwest Kingston University. It also includes the 4 membership renewals for SARA from 4 of our institutions, Delgado, Louisiana Tech, Southern Shreveport, and UNO, and the recommendations from the July 2019 meeting of the Regents Proprietary Schools Advisory Commission. Just briefly before I make the recommendation, just a little bit of information about Southwest Kingston. They were one of our conditionally approved institutions. After being initially approved by Regents, they were given 2 extensions along the way as they were working toward achieving accreditation. They experienced some bumps along that way, which required those extensions. For example, they had some turnover in administration in the early start of their journey, and then they, you may remember, made the decision to go from nonprofit to profit, which caused a 2-year delay in their journey towards accreditation as we received information from their chosen accreditor, the Distance Education Accrediting Commission. So this last go-round with them, unfortunately, they were not able to make it. They were not able to submit that application for accreditation as this board required that they did by this month of this year, and so therefore that conditional license has expired. We've confirmed that the institution is no longer in operation, and the students that were enrolled were either taught out or transferred to other institutions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of the committee, by the committee or staff?
So senior staff recommends that the Planning, Research, and Performance Committee approve all the items on the consent agenda.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye, or do we need to take roll? Do we need to take roll? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. The motion passes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And that is all the business that we have today.
Okay. Is there any other business to come before the committee? Motion to adjourn? Second. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, thank you. The meeting is adjourned.
Once again, Reggie Perez, we're going to ask you to call your committee-sponsored programs to order, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll call the committee meeting to order, and I ask Carrie Robinson to please take roll.
Thank you. Good morning. Regent Perez?
Here.
Regent Temple?
Here.
Regent David?
Here.
Regent Jewell?
Here.
Regent McDonald?
Here.
Regent Meyer?
Present.
Regent Seal?
Here.
Regent Weil?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Please proceed with the consent agenda.
Yes, ma'am. The consent agenda consists of 3 requests from campuses for appointments of endowed chairholders without a national search. In 2 of these cases, LSU and LSU HSC in Shreveport, the senior faculty member was hired through a national search, though the chair was not explicitly included in the national search. In the case of Northwestern, this is an interim appointment of the senior faculty member to hold a chair while a national search is conducted. The purpose of this appointment is to provide student support through the chair, which is consistent with its purpose, and the senior staff recommends approval of all 3 of these.
Is there a motion? Second? Discussion? Everyone in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. The next agenda item is the repurposing of some non-state earnings in an endowed chair at UL Monroe. The donor and the institution agreed that the best purpose of accrued earnings to the donor's portion of an existing endowed chair totaling about $1.2 million was to create a second endowed chair in the College of Pharmacy. It's important to note there are no state dollars associated with this. Both the original principal provided by the support fund as well as earnings attached to that are retained with the existing chair. There's also no potential for future match because this $1.2 million was earned in association with the state dollars. And it's also important to note that some new provisions in our policies will prevent this kind of accrual, this level of accrual of funds in the future. We do have spend-out policies now associated with endowed chairs and endowed professorships, and with that, the senior staff recommends approval of this action.
Is there a motion? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. The motion passes. Go ahead.
All right, and we have one piece of other business. I just wanted to keep the board informed that our 6 regional meetings that we told you about at the June meeting are now underway. The staff just returned at about 7 o'clock last night from our first 2 days of meetings. During those meetings, we had 4 staff on the road, 2 days, 3 sites, 10 campuses participated. We had around 30 individual meetings with potential applicants to support fund programs, and we participated in 1 press conference to announce the match of an endowed chair. We have 3 more sessions coming up, 1 tomorrow and 2 more next week, as well as tomorrow's general session, which provides basic information about the support fund and funding opportunities, will be recorded by video, and we will post that on the website for any faculty and administrators who were unable to attend the sessions in person. So that is all we have.
Great, and good feedback?
Excellent feedback.
Good.
Excellent participation.
Do we have any questions? No questions? Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the committee? Motion to adjourn? Second? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Perez. Next, before we go on to say why, I think the commissioner want to make a comment?
Let me just say that, just acknowledge the field work that is happening. As Carrie mentioned, just came in last evening, the Formula Summit in the field. Dr. Denby mentioned UL Lafayette will be hosting the data meeting. These are important conversations that are happening. I appreciate the staff for aggressively seeking opportunities to be on the campuses and in the communities, trying to make sure that we are being of service and supporting the institutions in all that we do. So thank you, Carrie, for that work, and to all of the team that's out there doing important work on behalf of the Board of Regents. We're grateful.
Thank you. Next meeting is statewide program. Regent Levy, would you please call your committee to order?
I would ask Sue Wan, when she gets a seat, to call the roll for the statewide committee program. Sue Wan or whom? Call the roll.
Regent Levy?
Here.
Regent Unison?
Speak up, move on to the mic.
Regent Tennyson?
Here.
Regent McDonald? Regent Pryor?
Here.
Regent Seal?
Here.
Regent Temple?
Here.
Regent Wyatt? 6 at a quorum.
All right, thank you. We'll move to item 3, the hazing prevention policy change.
As you know, in 2018, there was law passed prohibiting hazing and strengthening penalties, and also requiring education and awareness programs on different at the institutions, which also gave the Board of Regents the coordinating function, policy-making function, and to monitor the implementation. So we have been reporting to you on the 2018 implementation, and now in 2019, the 2018 laws were amended. Here are the specific changes. Act 382 of 2019 specifically changed certain portions of the 2018 laws, particularly the reporting requirements. Unlike prior laws, organizations do not have 14 days to investigate, during which they don't have to report out any incidents of hazing that have been reported to them. So now, the organizations as well as institutions must report as soon as practicable under the circumstances any incident of hazing that they have been made aware of. So the 14-day period is no longer a safe harbor. Institutions that do not follow the reporting requirements are subject to a $10,000 penalty, and both for the institutions and for the organizations, the reporting to law enforcement, no redaction is allowed. So including the names of hazards, any information that has been made known to the institutions or organizations have to be reported to law enforcement. During testimony, when this bill was being debated, it became quite clear that law enforcement, as the legislature envisions, is not just campus law enforcement. Any jurisdiction in which the institution is located, the incident of hazing must be reported to not just campus police, but also law enforcement of the jurisdiction.
Simultaneously?
Pardon?
They are to report to the campus as well as to the local jurisdiction?
Yes. The law doesn't say specifically law enforcement, local law enforcement, but that was made amply clear during testimony.
Okay.
Also, it extends the authority of the campus police to make arrests and to carry concealed weapons to any area, even if it is not on campus, if a member of an organization at that institution is involved in the reported incident of hazing. It further requires documentation of any action taken subsequent to the report was made to the institution or organization. Under the 2018 law, students had to be provided information on hazing prevention and awareness, and the 2019 law further requires that if the student is a minor, the information must be provided to the student's parents as well. And finally, institutions that have organizations affiliated with them must require the organization to adopt the institution's policy on hazing as a condition of operating at the institution. So that's a cost of being affiliated with the institution. The organization must adopt the same policy as the institution and must provide it to their prospective or current members. Any questions on the 2019 amendments? Now, to the specific requirements addressed to the Board of Regents under the 2019 law. As you know, last year we had the uniform policy on hazing prevention that we adopted, that the board adopted. Under the 2019 law, the Board of Regents is to develop and adopt a standardized form for institutions and organizations to use in reporting any incident of hazing to law enforcement. As you saw on the previous slide, institutions and organizations must report out those reported incidents of hazing. The Board of Regents must adopt standardized forms so that across the state you have institutions reporting on the same basis. They are not following different procedures and protocols for reporting out those incidents. The standardized forms are in your package. They are attachments C and D, I believe. And then the Board of Regents is also required to adopt a policy on which of the information that is reported to the law enforcement must be made public. What information should be made public? What can be made publicly available of the information that was reported to law enforcement? So today, for your action, we have the standardized forms that the institutions and organizations must use, as well as the policy that the Board of Regents is to adopt on which components of those reports must be made public. As we have in the past on all campus safety matters, we met with the systems as soon as even during the session, we met with the systems on pending amendments to the hazing laws. We met with the systems as soon as the law was passed to discuss implementation of the 2019 amendments. We provided draft of the forms as well as the policy to the systems, got their feedback, made the changes that we thought were appropriate. I want you to know that the forms that have been provided, the only modifications that the institutions may make is to add their campus logo, so it's clear that this is the campus that's reporting out an incident, as well as contact information that is specific to that campus. In all other aspects, the Board of Regents policy and the forms cannot be changed. The policy that you have also in your attachments, it makes the maximum amount of information available to the public, and the only exceptions are anything that would compromise the privacy interests. So the federal laws, HIPAA and FERPA, as well as state privacy laws to the extent they are applicable. So anything that would lead to the identification of the student, that cannot be made public. Anything that is required to be redacted under HIPAA or FERPA must be redacted. In all other respects, whatever is made available to law enforcement must be made available to the public. So this is a matter of transparency and accountability, and fair information available to parents and students that they can rely on. So that is what your policy, the policy draft that you have before you, that's what it requires. And all of this was done with the collaboration and input of the systems. So what you have before you has been reviewed and weighed in on by the systems. We also had representatives of the independent private universities and colleges who participated in these meetings. So your Lakeview institutions had representation on these meetings as well.
And this all applies to them
Yes.
as well?
So our recommendation is that the board, that the committee adopt the two standardized forms, one for institutions and one for organizations, and the policy on what components of the information reported to law enforcement must be made public.
Thank you. Uma, is there any questions concerning this? It kind of gets down into the weeds when it talking about public policy, or the policy concerning what goes public, because you have the rights of the privacy of the individual students, the rights of the privacy of a person that may be accused. You have concerns from law enforcement about an ongoing investigation and revealing too much information too early. Were they consulted?
Exactly.
They were all brought into this discussion.
Yes.
And this is a policy based on best practices across the country, is it not? Is there any questions?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
I was wondering, has there been a mandate of the schools to discuss with the students, the Greek organizations, the athletic teams about hazing? I see that y'all had some meetings with, it said schools or administrators, but is anybody talking to the students or being required by the board to talk to the student leaders of the Greek organizations to explain to them what is hazing? Because there is certainly going to be some controversy or misunderstanding of what is hazing and what is the definition of hazing. Do the students know that?
Yes, sir. I was going to mention that in other business when we talk about the implementation of the 2018.
Speak a little closer to the mic.
I was going to mention that when we talk about the implementation of the 2018 laws. As you know, in 2018, the laws required education be provided to students during orientation. In 2018, the law required the information to be provided in the form of a handbook because the lead time for implementation was fairly short when the 2018 laws were implemented. For 2019, though, the 2018 law required that not only do you have to provide the information via a handbook, you also have to provide in-person or electronic training during the 2019 orientation. So in conjunction with the 2019 law meetings, amendment meetings, we also talked about the continued implementation of the 2018 laws, and specifically the requirement for electronic or in-person training to be provided to students. And the organizations have a separate obligation to provide training, education to members and prospective members. All of that has been done in the 2018 set of implementation of laws. We, in conjunction, particularly Meg and Nikki and Tanisha, have been very helpful in making sure that each of the institution has an electronic or online, in-person or electronic training module available for rollout for the 2019 academic year during orientation. So we checked with the, First, we wanted to see if we can provide a uniform training module for the 2019 academic year. Many of the institutions and systems had already contracted with their own vendors for their electronic or in-person training. We reviewed the ones that they have already developed to make sure that it meets the requirements of the 2018 and the new amendments. For those that do not have their own training module, Meg partnered with a person who is really active in hazing prevention education to make sure that we have at least one training module available to those institutions that do not have their own training module. And we have all of those things made available on our website. So institutions that have their own training module, as well as the Board of Regents training module, everything is available. So there's one place where the students can go to see all the information. And we also have required in the policy that you will see, institutions have to have a website specific to hazing. This is on the education training aspect that is more under the policy. On the ground, last year, the commissioner made a statewide, it was a hazing prevention day, a week in September of 2018, and we plan to do the same thing this year. Meg and Nikki and Tanisha, they are actively engaged in putting together the next campus safety summit, with the specific focus on hazing. And our COSP leaders, the Council of Student Body Presidents, Harold and Nikki, who are working with the COSP members, they are actively pushing out the message through the COSP organization to make sure that students are as engaged as our systems have been in this effort. So this is a multi-pronged effort, so we are trying to make sure that every component of campus life is made aware of this. Campus counselors, student advisors, and that's what our campus summit did last year. We invited everybody who comes into contact with students in some capacity. Your campus police, student advisors, residential hall advisors, everybody. So we are planning to do the same thing this year in September. Meg is organizing that. So those are the things that we are doing to make sure that this doesn't end with
those
just
efforts, how many reports of hazing did students make?
This is the first year when we will gather that information. With the mandatory reporting and the public information to be made available under the 2019 amendments, we will have information that we can report out to you next year.
And the students have a promulgated anonymous way to report hazing?
Yes. If for some reason, if somebody doesn't want to come forward, a lot of times there's a good reason why they don't want to be identified as the complainant. Yes, they can make anonymous complaints. And the report, if the complaint is anonymous, to protect the privacy of the person complaining, because it's a brave act for somebody to come forward and jeopardize their own safety in some instances. So there are avenues for students to make those complaints on an anonymous basis.
Okay.
Any further questions? Do I have a motion to approve this agenda item? Move. Do I have a second? Second. Any opposition? Hearing none, that motion is approved. The next is the campus climate survey report. Lupe, are you going to do this one?
Yes, sir. Just want to make sure that I'm on. The next item is the Campus Climate Survey Report, which, okay. I want to give you a little bit of background information. The first slide covers the requirements mandated by Act 172 of the 2015 legislature. The requirements that were mandated included the administration of a yearly voluntary sexual assault climate survey, the development of training modules, designation of confidential advisors on the campuses, resource availability via web, and MOUs with local law enforcement. The next slide, you may recall that this is the fourth year of survey survey administration, and as we did last year, again, we collaborated with the University of Kentucky's Center for Research on Violence and Women, which is a recognized national leader in the area of sexual assault and victimization surveys. This year, the Commissioner and Board of Regents staff successfully presented a bill changing the annual survey requirement to every 3 years, beginning with the 2022-2023 academic year. All other requirements that I mentioned previously remain the same, but the timing of the administration will hopefully help with the response rate and meaningful implementation of the law. As you can see, our previous response rates were not statistically significant. We did have 31 institutions participating this spring semester in the administration of the survey, but this year's administration cost $70,000 and yielded a response rate of less than 3%. So that's even lower than the previous years, and again, continues to be statistically insignificant. Our response rate cannot be, is not representative of the total student population at an institution, nor the state as a whole. As a result, it is not possible to draw inference due to the very small and non-representative size of the respondents. The University of Kentucky did summarize the results in the report that was sent to the systems for distribution to the campuses after this meeting, and if approved by the board, will be sent to the representative and Senate education committees per law. The University of Kentucky made recommendations on how to increase participation rates. In the slide, you can see where institutions that provided monetary gifts to the respondents saw the highest participation rate, compared to those institutions offering gifts, a mixture of gift items, and monetary incentives, are not offering any incentives. Additionally, UK encourages campuses to continue to educate students about mandatory reporting, confidential reporting sources, accommodations for Title IX violations, and how to find resources for a range of victimizations. Next steps. Our final slide contains our next steps. We will meet with system representatives to go over the report's recommendations. We will begin the process to identify a survey instrument for the 2022-2023 year, and will work with campuses to consider other programming opportunities during those years when the survey is not being administered.
Are there questions of Lupe?
Any questions?
Less than 3% responding. Are we trying to bribe the students to do what they need to do to send in the form?
Well,
is the form too complicated, too long, too intrusive? What in the heck are we spending $70,000 for?
Well, I'm thinking that the students had 4 years of consecutive annual surveys, so that results in survey fatigue. There was mixed use of incentives over the past 4 years. You will probably remember that the Tulane University conducted a victimization survey last year with extremely high response rates, over 40%. Traditionally, this topic is difficult. It does see lower response rates nationally, but the conversations with the systems will need to include the use of incentivization, because as you could see, even though they were non-representative, it still makes a difference if the students have incentives for completion of the survey.
Did Tulane use monetary incentives?
Yes, every single student had the opportunity to receive a $5 coffee or Amazon gift certificate, as well, or they could put their name in for a raffle that included substantive incentives such as spending the day with the president, or actually being the
Some of them
president
would
of
pay
two
not to have to do that.
Exactly.
Yes, $5,
Yeah.
$5 was the difference between 3% and 40%?
Per student.
Yeah.
Per student, but good grief, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Any questions of Lupe or her $5 proposal?
I don't have a question, but I will say that it is important for us to understand the campus climate, to continue to improve on it. And so we will be talking with the system presidents and others about it. As she mentioned, we did change the legislation so that we will have a couple of years to do the survey. We also have included in the legislation that institutions can embed it into other work that they are doing, other survey work that they are doing. But this is important, so we want to make sure that we give it adequate attention and that the information that we do receive is acted upon to improve our campus
Absolutely.
environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Lupe. Is there, this require a motion or just informational?
Yeah, it's the recommendation is senior staff recommends that the Board of Regents receive the 2018-19 Campus Climate Survey report and authorize staff to submit the report to the governor and the Senate and House committees on education on behalf of the board.
Thank you. Members, you have heard the recommendation of the staff. Do I have a motion to adopt this? We have a motion, we have a second. Any opposition? Seeing none, that motion is approved. We'll move on next to the consent agenda. Dr. Boutte?
All right, you have two consent agenda items for statewide LOSPA programs. The first one is approval of final rulemaking. This is also an agenda item that you approved earlier in March for the initial rules. This was the definition of selective enrollment programs, removing references to program year, so these are technical changes, and amending the types of requests for exception that may be considered by LOSPA staff, moving things to objective from subjective, where the documentation required had become very standard. So this is approval of that final rulemaking. The next one is to ratify requests for exception to the TOPS regulatory provisions for continuous enrollment and earning the annual required hours. And the LOSPA Advisory Board has reviewed both of these and recommends approval of these consent agenda items.
Are there any questions?
Dr. Boutte, do you mind just going into a little more detail on the exceptions? I know you said it would allow the office to say, hey, here are the categories.
Yes.
And here's what's we're taking off the table.
The ones that are categorical are the ones that are very objective. For example, did the person, did they attend rehab? Did they have a maternity or paternity type leave? Is there any disability with respect to an illness? These are things that this is the documentation the student has to provide. If the student provides it, then that's going to be approved. Those are things that do not come to the regents. When we talk about these exceptions that do come to you, these are very subjective things, like the story I told you where the student had the giant ants in her apartment and she couldn't stay there and she was further away, or a student who is being abused and her family feels like she's in danger from an estranged partner, and they move that student to another location for safety, but that means that student's no longer enrolled in school, which would result in a cancellation of their TOPS. As you can see, those are things where the documentation is going to vary widely with the circumstances. One of the best examples of things that we took out of that category that would come to you and put it into the objective is incidences like the flood. So we had multiple students impacted by the flood. We had so many such that it was the same type of documentation over and over again. Did you have an insurance claim? Do you have proof that your house flooded? So that which may have been, 1, 2 when you get a group of those and all of a sudden that is not subjective anymore, that is objective, it's the same type of documentation. So this rulemaking moves those types of instances into the objective, meaning that you will be only approving those that are, this documentation is going to vary widely according to the individual circumstances.
All right, one more question, the continuous enrollment. How would the change be there for its continuous enrollment?
This is, for example, the student, the exceptional circumstance for continuous enrollment, the one that I talked about, the abuse. So that student did not enroll in the subsequent semester here in Louisiana because her family moved her. Unlike, I couldn't enroll because I was expecting or I delivered, or I couldn't enroll because I got in a car accident and it's obvious that I have been getting treatment for this illness. Those are not, that's more of a subjective issue where we've got to actually be able to have proof that, okay, so abuse, is this really the reason that the student left and moved? So that's how that affects continuous, the failure to continually enroll. Those other things on the objective side could also affect the failure to continually enroll. The difference is it's very straight piecework as to what documentation you have to prove that's why you didn't enroll.
So these changes do not affect the students who just drop in and drop out, et cetera, and do not have a reason for
No,
not
sir,
being
they would not be
continuously
approved on either
enrolled.
side.
That doesn't affect that group in
On either
any way.
side.
Right. Thank you, Dr.
You
Booth.
still, whether it's subjective or whether it's subjective, you either present the documentation to the committee or you do not. And, the objective is just easier, but the subjective does go through a committee of LOSFA, like broad base. You have audit in there, you have legal in there, you have scholarships and grants folks in there. Then after it goes through that, then it goes to the LOSFA advisory board, and then it comes to you. So it's been vetted several times, and there are often things that are delayed in getting to you because that first committee will say, you know what, I think you're going to need to provide me with a little bit more on that than what you did initially. So sometimes they're even tabled to where we go back and ask the student to provide, and for those students that do not provide that information, there's a category of denial that says we ask you for additional documentation, you did not provide it, this has been denied. Sometimes that gets the student's attention to go, oh, okay, they're not going to approve this until I provide it. That's correct. And if they do come back subsequently and provide it, then the committee does bring that up and it goes back through the process again.
Retroactively?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to point out,
For those semesters.
I'd like to point out Dr. Boutte and her staff.
Speaking to Mike, please, John.
Dr. Boutte and her staff are managing over about 50,000 students now on top. So she has, it has just grown and grown, and their problems grow with all these exceptions. So we appreciate your work on that, Dr. Boutte.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
The
you.
staff worked very hard.
Other questions, just by way of another issue. It used to be that the major problem that students lost their tops over was their failure to maintain full-time status, is that correct?
The 24 hours.
Pardon?
The 24 hours.
The 24-hour credit hours per year.
Correct.
Continues to be, to this day? the
No, sir,
problem?
not as much. We have seen significant decline in that, and that, I think, is a direct result of the policies and practices that you all have allowed. Before, a student had fall and spring. Well, then campuses began offering intersessions. So if a campus is going to offer an intersession, why would you not allow that student to be able to utilize that intersession to get their hours? And so then we added intersessions. Like, well, campuses offer summer school, right? So why would you not allow a student to be able to go to summer school to get their hours? And so then you did that. Then after that, we said, well, you can go to get your hours, but your grades, you're going to say that you can't go to get your grades up, so then you allowed both. You have the academic year, fall, spring, summer, any intercessions in between to get your hours and to get your grades. And we check grades at the end of every semester and then at the end of every year. Again, today's students work more. You know, many of them are parents. There are significantly more demands on students' time than it was when I was in school. I'll just speak for me. And so these things that you've done that are student-centric are making a difference, as well as we have a student hub. I got a call last night from somebody wondering about their kid's progress, and we talked about the student hub. My staff is on the phone with the parent and the student today saying, this is how the student can track in the hub if they're on track for renewal for TOPS or not. So don't say you didn't know. Look in your account and we're going to tell you, you need this, you have this. Then we added, well, you know, I'm a parent, Harold's a parent, right? And whose pocketbook does that affect? If your student loses his TOPS, well, it affects the parent as well. So we added, with permission, since these are 18-year-olds by and large, that if that student gives that parent permission, that parent can go in and log into that hub and say, I'm seeing that you are not on track. So when you put those motivational factors there, they tend to help. Then we added text messaging to say, hey, don't ask your neighbor, don't ask a friend. Sometimes don't ask a well-meaning advisor on campus that may not know the TOPS rules, right? Just text LOSPA or send CUSR, because we know they really don't want to talk to us on the phone unless they've got a serious problem. And so we can text a student and send out something saying, hey, it's almost time, remember this is what you have to do. And students can also initiate a text message to LOSPA, and they often do, to say, hey, can you check to see what I need to do? Can you check my status? Can you tell me? And those things, I think, a compilation of being student-centered, being who you say you are, we've seen the results. Students are keeping their awards longer, and guess what happened at the legislature this last year? The cost of TOPS increased. But we made out of appropriations alive by saying these are good problems to have if they're doing what you ask them to do, and more of them are performance and honors, and they're keeping their awards. Isn't that what you ask them to do? Well, they are meeting that challenge, so.
Good news, good news. Do I have a motion to approve the consent? We have another question.
No, I move motion.
Have a motion, do we have a second? Is there any discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, we have one more, and of course, you know how passionate I am about my babies, and the folks the students that we serve here, we always want to bring you what we are doing to be able to prepare the students that are in the pipeline to get to higher education. So these other business slides, we brought you in the last meeting the summer camps that we were doing as a part of Gear Up. And there's academics in these camps, as well as STEM and STEAM activities in these camps. And across the top, you will see the logos of the organizations and institutions that partnered with us to provide this. Around the perimeter, you will see the logos where we got media coverage. But I think, you know, the pictures and the students' words themselves are worth more than whatever grown people say. So I'm going to press play, and it's going to do the video. As I told Dr. Reed and Chairman Chabert, I don't know this child. I've never met him, so I didn't slip him a 20, but if I did meet him, his payment is due in order. I also, before we do that, want to point out the logo at the bottom right corner. You see that MPW? That stands for, we developed this, and the Pelican, the LOSPA Pelican, that stands for Master Planned at Work. So whenever we're bringing you something that shows, we hear you, right? It's more than a document for us. For us, it's a way of life. So we're going to brand it with that logo so that you'll know this is proof positive that what you're asking to be done is being done. So I'm being told to press the space bar.
My name is Kyron Dotson, and I'm going to the 9th grade. I would like to become a chemical engineer. My strongest suit is like math and science. Those like the ones I take most interest in. I knew that I wanted to, you know, do something along the architect, engineer lines, but with this Gear Up camp, some of the exercises that we do within the camp pertain to, math, science, and engineering. Taking the surveys and whatnot, it showed me exactly what career would be best for me. I kind of knew what range I was in, but this camp has helped me find exactly what career I want to pursue in. During the school year, you're constantly taking classes, taking tests, doing homework, learning lessons. You're constantly working, but over the summer, you kind of, fall back on it. And so with the tutoring program that this camp has to offer, it kind of helps you get back on it. Like, you don't forget what you learned throughout that school year. They really invested in what you are trying to do, like what you are trying to become, and they really give you a lot of insight. Most definitely give me more awareness, like more preparation for it. They're not too far from me, so you can relate to them. They can relate to you. They could be like, oh yeah, I remember when I did that. Hey, you should do this, because that'll help more. With this Gear Up camp, it paved a new road, I feel like that. Like, it was an opportunity for me to see things that I wouldn't just see at a different camp through a different program. Like, I could get hands-on experience.
We are very, very proud that not only did that student hit everything that we could have scripted, but we didn't. The participants in the 2019 Gear Up Summer Learning Camps increased their English and reading scores by 19.6% and their math scores by 28%. In a nod to the master plan at work with your asking about meaningful certifications, the AHEC Consortium, which is a healthcare consortium, that camp was held in the Lake Charles area. 15 of those students received their CPR and their first aid certifications as a result of that camp. So it's hands-on learning, STEM and STEAM, as well as academic tutoring in English language arts and math. And the last slide is one of our own Gear Up students who was a Gear Up student who actually became going from a Gear Up student to a Gear Up tutor to a Gear Up mentor that you saw mentioned, our own Oscar McLean, who we gave a shout out to in the last meeting, I believe, that interned this summer at Los Alamos, and former First Lady Michelle Obama mentioned him on Instagram and gave him a huge shout out for his accomplishments, which is basically what this program does. And Oscar, even though he has graduated, and even though he is in the engineering field as well, has an interest in continuing to work with this population. So we're going to see how we can make that work. And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you so much, Dr. McDaniel. No further business, motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Swanum and Lupe, thank you all also. I want to thank our board members from Mr. Paul Price and Mr. Mary Warren and Ms. Donahue for always being here and participating. We appreciate it. We're going to take a brief lunch break and we'll be here banging the gavel at 1 o'clock.
Good.
Lunch is in Joe's. So one, Thomas Jones.
That's where we're going.
We're going to Green.
Regent Adley, Regent Schaubein, Regent Devine,
Here.
Regent Ewing,
Here.
Regent Jewell,
Here.
Regent Leamy, Regent McDonald?
Here.
Regent Meyer? Regent Perez?
Here.
Regent Pryor?
Here.
Regent Seal?
Here.
Regent Solomon?
Here.
Regent Temple?
Here.
Regent Tennyson?
Here.
Regent Wild?
Here.
Regent Wyatt? You have a quorum.
Thank you, Stephanie. Before we get started, when I woke up this morning, was looking for one of my 3 sports coats to wear, I saw the one that I had not taken this blue and white pin off, and that's what we wore on the day of Governor Blanco's line in State of the Capitol. And it reminded me of what a great governor she was, especially for higher education. And I have a quote that I use all the time, everywhere I speak, and it's from Kathleen Blanco, and she said, "Education is poverty's mortal enemy." Probably the truest statement ever made towards education. And right now, I'd like to take a moment of silence to remember Kathleen Blanco, Governor Kathleen Blanco. Thank you. Well, now we are pleased to present our master plan on higher education. I'm going to turn it over to the Commissioner so she can go over it. We have a short video.
When I was in 8th grade, I got an assignment to go home and talk to my parents about what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so when I got home, we talked about it, and the best thing we could come up with was something in the hospitality area.
We didn't have a lot of money, and I didn't know if I would be able to put her through college. I worked in a gas station pretty much all since she's been in school. It's really hard to dream what's possible because of the area that we are in. I knew that she could do great things. I just didn't know how to make it happen.
In order to ensure that we erase the attainment challenge, that we erase the equity gap, we have to erase the belief gap.
Then I went to high school and I met Ms. McIntyre, and she really pushed me to move forward with going into healthcare and, more importantly, going into nursing.
And Ms. McIntyre really did step up, and she helped me as well as her. See that there was a lot that can be done even if you don't have it all.
Regardless of your zip code, regardless of your race or place, we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to reach that unlimited potential. And we know that education is the way forward.
When she walked across that stage and she graduated, it was the most beautiful thing I could have ever imagined.
We need to make sure that we're saying to every student, we believe in you, we know that you can do amazing things, your state needs you and your talent.
It's our responsibility to help develop that talent.
We don't want to just set a vision, we want to make sure that we get there. Louisiana prospers when we get this right because of our education, our innovation, and our collaboration.
The Louisiana Talent Imperative.
Developing
talent
so Louisiana prospers. Developing talent so Louisiana prospers.
Thank you all so much for being here, and Meg and Nikki for that amazing video for us. We are certainly honored. This is an exciting day for Louisiana. As the mom said in that video, we want to make sure kids can dream big and great things can happen as a result of the work that we do collectively. So each of you have at your table, board members, this document that we have worked on very hard together, a collaborative effort. Louisiana Prospers Driving Our Talent Imperative. And I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to hear from the individuals who are here to speak about the work that we have done together. A little bit about getting to this point today, this day of celebration. We started about a year ago during our staff retreat, and the staff looked fabulous in their Regents polo shirts, and thank you for being here and for your amazing work. About a year ago, our staff retreat, we started working on our mission and vision statement because we know any road will get you there if you don't know where you're going. So we needed to make sure we had that solid. The work has been informed by visits that I've had the opportunity to visit all of our public post-secondary institutions, talking with campus leaders and students and faculty and community and business leaders, trying to understand both our challenges and opportunities. And then in October, we had our board retreats, and you all dug deep into the data, looked at what was happening in our state and what we need for our state in terms of prosperity and a more vibrant Louisiana. And then as a result, you set a new attainment goal for Louisiana. 60% of all working adults will have a credential value by 2030. That means that we have to more than double the number of credentials in our state. We have higher education leaders here because the Board of Regents set strong policy. We're here to support good work, but we don't graduate one student. That happens because of the result of our institutions and our campus leaders. We had to take a look at what was happening in terms of the challenges that we face. So we had 3 specific areas in our environmental scan that we needed to work on. We needed to make sure that more students had access and success, more high school students going to college, more college students finishing where they start. We have to take on these persistent and stubborn equity gaps in our state to make sure that minority students are as successful, as likely to be successful as any other individual in our state. And then finally, we have to lean in deep to make sure that more of our adults have an opportunity to have that credential of value. Because we know in Louisiana, half of our working adults, almost half of our working adults, have a high school diploma or less as their highest credential at a time where they need so much more in this market economy. So our commitment in the document is to educate, innovate, and collaborate at scale. And that is the work that we will be doing. The master plan, of course, is one part of the strategic planning responsibility, that constitutional responsibility that this board has. We also have responsibility in admission standards, setting outcomes-based funding formulas, and setting role scopes and missions for our institutions. All of this work, all of these components have to work to leverage the success of our students and our state, and we are committed to do just that. We also plan to hold ourselves accountable. So we wanted to make sure that we had a dashboard available to show where we are in terms of our priority populations, and the data to show the work that we want to do. So we are going to set annual targets. We will work with our systems and campuses to get that work done, but we want to make sure that our data is available so that people can see where we are in this 11-year journey to get to this attainment goal. Finally, I wanted to say that as we think about this population, we look at our high school students. We have a dual enrollment task force. We want to make sure more high school students graduate high school with a credential. The mindset shift for us in Louisiana is for K-12 to be seen as an extension of public post-secondary or post-secondary education. And so we need to make sure that we're working on that. And so we will be looking at college going and credential attainment as well as high school graduation rates, and I appreciate Aaron being here with us as well. In equity populations, we'll look at enrollment and completion. As I mentioned, we have to make sure that we erase those gaps. And for our adults, I know that Monty Sullivan and Jim Henderson and so many others are committed to making sure that adults have an opportunity to get those credentials of value, because it makes a difference in their families, and makes a difference in their communities and for our state as well. In addition, I will say that we set this big goal, but it is not just a higher education goal. It requires a full court press from everyone owning this work and being a part of this work. And that's why we have so many prosperity champions and partners in this room who are committed to this work, who love Louisiana, who want to make sure that our state is as bright and prosperous and that our citizens have unlimited opportunity and potential. We know that education makes that happen. And so we're very excited to have all of you join us today for this celebration, because we know the hard work happens after we approve this plan, but we are ready. We are determined to develop talent in Louisiana, and we are excited and we are so proud to have all of you with us for this afternoon. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Commissioner. Way to lay out the plan. She always does a great job. Next, what I'd like to do is call our Governor of the state of Louisiana, Governor John Bel Edwards, to come up and say a few words. First, I'd like to state a few things. Just a few facts. that as State Representative, John Bell Edwards was a friend of higher education. When he was running for governor, he was a friend of higher education. He came to our board meetings before he ran, while he was running, and has been here 4, 5, 6 times since he has been governor, which is something I have never seen in the whole time that I have served on these boards, which was been a little while. Second of all, when Governor Kathleen Blanco left office, higher education was funded at $1.5 billion. When Governor Edwards took over, we were at $750 million, close to it, that's a fact. The last 2 years, when he got here, he was able to stabilize higher education's funding, stop the bleeding, if you will. He fully funded TOPS the last 2 years, and for the first time, he brought and led the legislature with his efforts over $45 million to higher education. And with that, Governor, thank you so much for all you do for us and for the kids of this state.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate that. And I thank all of you all for your work on higher education, all the people who are behind me as well. I'm excited to join all of you today, and I know we're celebrating and we're cheering about this. You know, my office actually had, we took a picture today, the governor's office on the front steps, and everyone was encouraged to wear their colors for their universities. So you see my shirt and my tie because I had the great fortune of graduating from LSU Law School. But that is not to say that I have favorites. I love all of our systems and all of our institutions. I love them all. But the master plan for higher education, Louisiana Prospers, this is so critically important to the future of our state and to the future of our families and individuals in Louisiana, especially our young people, but not exclusively our young people. And as you mentioned, much of the focus is going to have to be on adults. And Louisiana Prospers, driving our talent imperative. There is a virtuous cycle that comes with having the human talent that you need in Louisiana. I'm talking about educated, skilled, trained workers who will make successful employees, because that's how you instill confidence in the decision makers to invest in Louisiana as opposed to somewhere else. And if they invest somewhere else, then guess what? We can educate people in Louisiana, but they have to leave our state to go take advantage of that education and participate in the prosperity. But if we will do it here and make sure that enough people are educated, that this is where people invest their money, the jobs are going to be created here, the careers are going to be created here, and our state will benefit. And that is what we're seeing already across the state of Louisiana, just with our renewed commitment to higher education. It is the #1 question that I am asked by decision makers from all over the world, not just Louisiana, not just the United States, all over the world, before they invest in our state. And by the way, we have more foreign direct investment in our state per capita than any other state in the nation. But they ask about our talent pipeline. And so you're right on track here. And then making sure that that pipeline is, the diameter of it is big enough to pick up some folks that we haven't been doing a good job with, quite frankly. The adults, the out-of-school 18 to 24-year-olds, people in corrections. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I know that the master plan represents a collaboration of many of the stakeholders and agencies that you're going to hear from today, and I want to thank them for the time, the energy, effort that went into formulating what I believe is going to be a master plan that will move Louisiana higher education forward. I want to thank Board Chair Marty Chabert, Commissioner Kim Hunter-Reed, the entire board, and the staff of the Board of Regents for your commitment to this effort. I think we can all agree, especially since we're all in this room because we love higher education, that we understand it's a priority for our state. Data and common sense and our human experience all demonstrate the importance of higher education. We know that higher education changes lives, improves families. And by the way, it's a multi-generational change. It's not something that is fleeting. And so that's why it's so critically important. Higher education stimulates growth, increases innovation, creates hope and prosperity for future generations. And I'm glad that we're able to start down the road toward reinvesting in higher education this year with the best education budget that Louisiana has seen in a decade across the board. I'm talking early childhood, $20 million more this year than last year for early childhood efforts. We in K through 12, teacher pay raise for the first time in a decade funded by the state of Louisiana, not just teachers, everybody on the campus getting a pay raise. We also increased the block grant funding portion of K through 12, as you know, 70% of which has to go to the classroom. And then as your board chair indicated, the first net new investment in higher education in a decade. And so while we can, I think, be proud of that we've changed, we stabilized first and now we've changed direction and we're moving in a more positive fashion, nobody should be content with where we are. We've got a lot of work to do. And that's on the funding side and in many other areas as well. Our economic future in this state is inextricably linked to our talent pipeline. That's what I was saying a little bit earlier. And we have to ensure that access to the talent pipeline is equitable for all Louisianans, whether you're from Baton Rouge or Bastrop, Ville Platte to Vidalia. We have to make sure that our people have an opportunity to excel, the same opportunity to excel. So the Louisiana Talent Imperative requires equity-minded focus. We cannot reach our goal or fulfill the potential of all of our citizens without addressing educational inequities, which too often occur in the PK through 12 system and continue on through post-secondary education. Achievement gaps by race and income level have stubbornly persisted, resulting in a high cost to the state and lost talent and lower prosperity. And I guess this is where that quote from Governor Kathleen Blanco comes into play. Because I do believe education is the mortal enemy of not just poverty, but of a lot of ills that afflict us here in Louisiana and really every society in the country. Evidence-based practices that assist minority and low-income students in finding and navigating their pathways, feeling connected to their education and their future, flourishing academically and financing their post-secondary experience reflect the kind of broad approaches that really can bear results. As the master plan points out, we need to prioritize education and training of our adult population as well. Simply put, we can't get where we need to go if we don't bring adults back into the system. The good news is there are a lot of adults out there that have some post-secondary education. They've got credits, they've got hours. But trying to figure out who they are, where they are, and what they've already earned is going to be difficult, and then getting them back into the system. But it's something we're going to have to do if we're going to be successful, and that's going to allow them to improve their individual lives and boost their standard of living, and that's going to happen all across the state. In just a little bit, you're going to hear from Secretary LeBlanc, and I know he's going to tell you that we need to do more with respect to higher education of the incarcerated population in Louisiana. Simply put, about 95% of the people who are in prison today are going to get out. And they've got to be part of the talent pipeline if we're going to be successful as a society. Preparing these individuals for life after incarceration, making sure that when they're released, they have the training and the skills and the opportunities, that will decrease the chance of recidivism. It's going to raise their earning potential. It'll allow them to support themselves and their families, become productive members of societies, taxpayers rather than tax consumers. It sets them on a positive path for the future. Other populations also need your support. Foster youth, people aged 18 to 24 working in school, not working or in school. These are the opportunity youth, as Secretary Walters is going to speak about, and working residents of any age who are seeking additional skills. All of these individuals should find encouragement and support to earn the credentials needed to realize their ambitions. And 60% by 2030. I know that sounds like a long time from now, but we're all old enough that we know that time is not slowing down. And we're gonna turn around, it'll seem like the day after tomorrow, and we're gonna be there. And so I don't want anybody on the Board of Regents or in this room today or any way part of this effort to think, well, we got 11 years, we can slow down and kind of pace ourselves and so forth. This really has to start now. And we have to have those benchmarks to measure our performance over time, and that's why the dashboards, I think, are an excellent idea. It gives me a lot of pride to announce that Louisiana has been named one of 6 states selected to receive the National Governors Association Educate for Opportunity Award. That's geared toward education and workforce development efforts for adult learners in the state. This is a big win for us. We're going to receive $100,000 of this grant to build data-driven approaches to connect residents to jobs in growing industries, strengthen local economies, and help people embark on meaningful careers that will allow them to support themselves and their families. Representatives from Louisiana will join Strata, the NGA, and other policy matter experts in St. Louis, Missouri, September the 18th for the formal launch of this project. And I think having the master plan is going to help us to make sure that we can take full advantage of this opportunity we've been given. You all know this, but the greatest asset we have in Louisiana is our people. And when we invest in our people, we're going to see opportunity and prosperity like we have never seen. Everything else is in place. And so your work, the work of all of the institutions and the systems to make this master plan a reality is going to transform our state. It is literally going to transform our state, and it is urgently needed. You know, we're serving the people of Louisiana. That's what this board is doing. Through talent development, we're just going to move our state forward, and we have to be focused on it, and we have to be persistent. And I have no doubt that we can get there. 60% by 2030. 60% of our adult population having a post-secondary credential of some sort or another. That's an ambitious goal, but it is one that can be reached, and has to be reached, because the fact of the matter is, in one generation's time, we've gone from where only about 25% of high school graduates need any education beyond high school to have a solid path to the middle class, to where it's about 2/3 today. That's one generation's time. That's why there's no time to waste. That's why we can't allow 18-year-olds to finish high school and then meander aimlessly until they're 30, and all of a sudden they're married with kids and they realize they're not earning what they need to earn and they didn't live up to their potential. We need to keep them in our education system. That's what dual enrollment, I think, is going to help us with, and we have to have other strategies as well. But I'm confident that we can get there, and Louisiana's future is counting on all of us, collaborating with the voices that you're going to hear today and so many other stakeholders across the state who are invested in higher education. We have to get this right, and I am sure that we will. So I want to thank everybody again for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for your work in setting in motion this transformation that we're going to see in the state of Louisiana, but really all the work that you've done, because you've already been doing a lot of really hard work at the Board of Regents and the various systems. I know how challenging it has been, and things are a little easier, I believe, because we're a little less focused on paying the bills and more focused on delivering education, which is where our minds ought to be. But we still have a long way to go on all fronts, and I'm committed to making sure that we get there because it's just too important. So God bless each and every one of you. Thank you so much.
Governor, thank you on behalf of the board. You've made some great appointments. We got leaders over here that really care about the higher education agenda and want to do what's right all the time, and board members, as I told you before, this governor, every time the commission and I have mentioned something to him, and dual enrollment is a perfect example. We met with him on Monday afternoon. On Thursday, he says, come to the mansion, I want to make dual enrollment part of my agenda for this session. And, you know, that's a heck of a governor, in my opinion, that does what is right. Thank you, Governor. Commissioner?
Thank you so much, Governor. As was mentioned, collaboration is critical to our work, so I want to make sure that we hear from some of the voices here who are going to help us to get to where we need to go. Representing higher education, from the student voice, Taylor Scott, and then the system presidents, King Alexander, Jim Henderson, Ray Belton, and Monty Sullivan. If you all will come to the table, we will hear from each of you. I think there's enough, yeah. Welcome, thank you. Thank you for being here. Taylor, you want to lead?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Taylor Scott. I am a senior public relations major at Louisiana State University. And just like the commissioner said, I am the student body vice president for student government there. And today I just want to talk a little bit about developing talent in Louisiana. I do have a very unique perspective because I am a out-of-state student. I'm from Beaumont, Texas. And just coming to Louisiana, I was recruited by the Manship School at LSU, and I don't think that my experience has just been something that I really don't even have words for, just coming to school in this state. And some things that I've learned as being a student and interacting with other students is the talk about higher education, and even when you talk to students and they tell you about their high school education, and that may have been a good experience, and sometimes it was not a good experience. And just from fighting at the TOPS rally to testifying on affordable textbooks, I just think that Louisiana has a unique opportunity to invest in their students. And the reason I say this is as I talk to different students, and like I said, I'm a senior, and so a lot of students are talking about what's next for them. And I think that this master plan will help students consider staying in Louisiana and leaving their talents in this state. And I have 3 things that I think this developing talent will help Louisiana students. I think it'll give us opportunity. When you see that the state is investing in education, it means that they're investing in you as a student. And so that is an opportunity, you know, to go to college. That's an opportunity to stay in the workforce. That's an opportunity to create something that this state needs from the things that you've learned in college. Another thing I believe is success. When you're thinking about where you want to take your talents, when you're thinking about where you want to start a family or those different things, you want to choose a place where you can be successful, where you can earn the salary that you feel like you deserve, that you can just have a nice place to grow in. And I think investing in higher education will help us have that success. And the last thing I want to say is competition. We, as a student, we are always looking for the next best thing. Where can we be number one? Where can we shine? And by investing in higher education, I think that will make the competition slim for us, where we'll choose Louisiana. Louisiana should be our number one choice as a student who chooses to go to school in Louisiana, to pay to go to school in Louisiana, to invest their time in student organizations, investing their time, and just different things on campus. So, like I said, those 3 things are opportunity, competition, and success. Thank you.
Everybody else can leave now. Good luck following that.
Yes. Thank you so much, Taylor. Well said. Okay, guys. Do what you can do with that.
Well, good afternoon to everyone, and
Good
allow
afternoon.
me to bring greetings on behalf of the Chairman of the Board of Supervisors, the Honorable Lemoyne Rutledge, and the entirety of the Southern University system. As I've said in the past, I think the sun is shining on the state of Louisiana today, and indeed it's a very exciting day for the higher education community. And I really believe that, leadership matters. And I say that with some context because I have the great fortune of working with a number of colleagues who are sitting up here who do an incredible job of advancing the interests of higher education in the state of Louisiana. And it has been my observation over a number of years that that's sometimes difficult in keeping with our unique missions. But we actually do work well together. And I think that wish to do so has contributed to our unified position in supporting this master plan for higher education. I think it's also important to recognize our commissioner who, in her own vein, has tried to put us all together. And I would submit that she is the leader to whom we've been looking for. And we certainly recognize the attributes to which she brings to this role. And so she, bringing oversight over the staff who did an incredible job of developing this, really provides us, I believe, with a foundation to move forward. This master plan reflects, in my opinion, conclusions that are steeped in data that enable us to really offer rationale for the decisions that we must continue to discuss. And I even like the tagline, driving our talent imperative, the best one, the Bridge to Prosperity Pipeline. I never heard that one. I'm going to borrow that one from you.
Please do.
So having kind of digest this master plan, I recognize that it has many lofty goals, and particularly as it relates to increasing access, the equity gap, minimizing that gap, and making more opportunities to adult learners. I truly believe that in keeping with the mission of the Southern University system, while all of higher education carries a burden to ensure that we fulfill those aims, Southern University, I think, has an even greater burden in keeping with our mission to promote access and indeed to ensure that we're shaping goals and strategies that provide for the underserved an opportunity to experience a quality of life to which they deserve. And so, notwithstanding the fact that the SUBR campus, for example, probably graduate more African Americans with a baccalaureate degree than any single institution in the state of Louisiana, this plan imposes on us to do more. That's right. And so what I really welcome is the continuation of this discussion, because I think one of the indirect outcomes of this plan is the degree to which we've had some opportunities to discuss a pathway forward. And for me, that rests with giving more attention to the role, scope, and mission of our respective institutions going forward. I can tell you that we have struggled with our present designation as it is now because we just don't think it fits. Southern University, for an example, is Southern University Baton Rouge, for example, is designated as a regional institution, notwithstanding the fact that we have a land grant mandate, We have campuses in 3 metropolitan areas in the state. We have an extension mandate that puts us in as many as 34 parishes in the state. And so the designation doesn't fit. If I would add, if you would characterize us as a statewide institution, it would impose on us to adopt an omission standard that probably compromise the degree to which we can provide appropriate access. I really think that there needs to be another grouping for HBCUs in the state that provides us with the flexibility to really express the uniqueness of institutions like Southern University. But again, I think that's where the opportunity lies as we move forth in discussing this master plan and shaping a strategy and a structure that works for the state of Louisiana. And interestingly enough, that's what this master plan speaks to, is being innovative in how we look at our pathway forward. So again, I just want to express our delight in having the opportunity to work with our colleagues and work with this board, this staff, who's done an incredible job in advancing the interests of the state of Louisiana. Good afternoon to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Jim Henderson. I'm the president of the University of Louisiana system, and this is all 4 of our systems are unique. We have a world-class flagship university, of course, here in Baton Rouge. The my alma mater, the Demons, will be coming down to visit you in Tiger Stadium in just a couple of weeks. Halftime will be very entertaining, I would say. We have a world-class community technical college system, and my dear friend, Monty Sullivan, who has just taken what was a great system and made it truly world-class. And of course, I'm sitting next to the president of the only HBCU system that exists in the country, Ray Belton. And the 4 of us have formed a deep friendship and partnership over the last several years. Scarcity has a way of doing that, bringing people together. I will tell you, though, because of the leadership of Governor Edwards and a partnership of our legislature giving us stability and funding these last 2 years has allowed us to focus on the roles that you have given us as education leaders, and that's educating our citizenry and developing talent. It was 2 years ago that I brought the 9 presidents of these very distinct institutions, and each has its own mission, its own history, its own culture, its own alumni base. But collectively, the universities of Louisiana have a $10.9 billion annual economic impact on this state. And we brought them to Baton Rouge. We had a conversation. How do we create an audacious vision that's worthy of a system like that? And that's why I love how your master plan starts with the audacity of high expectations. That's the kind of language that we have to use. And these 9 presidents came together with a strategic framework that promises to produce the most educated generation in Louisiana's history. It spurred the development of the Reginald F. Lewis Educational Equity Initiative that takes these 9 universities and says, we've got to erase the gaps around demographics and socioeconomic status so that we elevate all of Louisianans. So we launched the Compete Louisiana initiative that focuses, according with our mission, on the 653,000 adults in Louisiana that have some college but no degree. They lack the credential to take advantage of this wealth of opportunities that exist today and the infinite possibilities that are coming with the future of work. You see, automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, those can be scary things for someone that doesn't have the knowledge, skills, and ability to operate in that world, who can't think critically, can't solve problems, communicate effectively, people who are culturally competent and technologically literate. Those are the citizens that are going to thrive in this new reality. And that's who we produce. That is the core of education. And so we started down this path, and I'm very excited about the momentum we created, but you did something 15 months ago when you brought a commissioner of higher education to Louisiana that partners with these 4 systems and said collectively, it's not only will we do something, we must do something audacious. This plan that you are adopting today creates the policy framework that supports the work that's occurring, not at system levels, not even at university levels, but the work that occurs even in the classroom, as every one of the faculty members that we represent is in the business to improve the human condition. And what more noble purpose could there be than that? So I want to thank the Board of Regents. I especially want to thank Kim Hunter-Reid for her leadership. We look forward to doing this work with you. We will realize a Louisiana that has eluded us for generations. So thank you all very, very much.
That's it.
My name is King Alexander from LSU, and on behalf of our Board of Supervisors and our incoming chair, who's sitting right there, Mary Warner, and our student government president, our student government vice president, we very much appreciate the goals and the ambition of this plan. I think back to when the commissioner and I were talking in her office in Washington, D.C., in the Department of Education about many of these very same issues of what our states need to do and what our federal government needs to support our states to continue doing or to improve what they're doing. There are a couple things about this plan I think are fitting right in line with what we're achieving at LSU, certainly expanding access and success. I'm thrilled to say that last year's graduating class was the largest, most diverse graduating class in the history, and we plan on breaking every one of those records each and every year. And that's of every group: Hispanic, African American, male, female, veterans, first generation. And now I know that William and Taylor have the daunting task of taking the largest freshman class in the history of LSU, the highest achieving freshman class, 6,200 new freshmen, which on average, the average Hispanic and African American population at LSU on the main campus is about 19%. This class is 30%. It's the largest first generation class and the largest honors graduating class with the highest GPA we've ever had. So success, to get to success, you've got to have access. And I'd like to commend the board and commend this plan and the commissioner for also understanding that our graduation rate doesn't start at orientation last week, and it doesn't start at the fall week when the students show up. Our graduation rate starts in preschool. And the significance that our universities play in helping our preschool through elementary school, through middle school, through high school, is perhaps the most important task that we face. And 3 years ago, we started the Capital Area Promise with Southern and LCTCS, and we signed an agreement that we're going to make it better and start one parish at a time. And it's modeled after the Long Beach College Promise, which is probably the best college promise partnership in the country. In the last 3 years, we've seen a 31% increase in East Baton Rouge public school students come to LSU. And I suspect the same thing that they've seen at Southern and the same thing they've seen at LCTCS. We're showing the state that we can be a model and making sure that access is there and that access is not unequal, but once we get students to the front door, our challenge then starts to get them out and graduate. That's why this plan is the objectives are right in line with what I remember when I was in Kentucky and Paul Patton's plan to make Kentucky a more economically and socially viable place to be and to come to. On reducing the equity gaps, we're pleased to say that our African American population graduates at 20% higher than the national average, and we have the second highest alumni base of African American students, and we look forward to shattering every record, looking more like Louisiana every day and looking more like this country is changing every day. And we're pleased to be doing this, and we are thrilled that this is such a big part of this plan. Significant increase in levels of adult learners. We know that most people without degrees and certificates are our adults, or those that dropped out and didn't finish. Well, last year we started LSU Online, and we hope to have 35,000 online adult learners as well as students from all over the country and the world studying to get an LSU degree. Currently, we're up to about 5,000 system-wide. You're going to hear a lot more about LSU Online, but we want to reach those adult populations who can't relocate, who can't move in freshman week, who we know are out there, we know need credentials, and we know who need baccalaureate and graduate degrees. A couple areas of significance that I think are even particularly relevant to LSU. One is our research universities. And on page 32, The power of research universities, and I've been in 6 states, and this happens consistently in many states. Our state legislatures don't fully understand or don't fully value the power of research universities. We're not going to reach our goals, if you take health, for example, we're not going to reach our goals without the work that Pennington is doing and many of our scientists are doing if we have unhealthy children going through schools. Unhealthy children graduate less than healthy children. Unhealthy adults are less productive in every economy than healthy adults. The research that we're doing in innovation is critical for making this plan work for the betterment of this state. And finally, well, let me point out that last week I was fortunate to spend 24 hours at Oak Ridge Laboratories. And Oak Ridge, if you remember, is where the nuclear age started in 1943 with the splitting of the atom. They're the best physicists in the world are at Oak Ridge Laboratories. They're from Argentina, they're from Canada, they're from many places in the United States. Many went to school in the United States. What they knew about LSU at Oak Ridge Laboratories is they knew everything we were doing at LIGO. They knew about every one of the discoveries that have happened at the LIGO out here in Livingston Parish. And they knew about LIGO because they're working on the next era of nuclear power. And they are following the discoveries that are going on, which were discovered at 4:23 a.m. by 2 graduate students, one a graduate student at Southern and one a graduate student at LSU. Because I think they're probably the only ones up at 4:23 a.m. But there's something else about that group that I was talking with, the physicists. They came from all over the world. Our international students are vital to the growth of this country. A third of Silicon Valley was built with international students who stayed. We need to make sure that we are attracting the best international students. Also, we need to make sure as a state, the states that do this best and measure their adult learning population and educational attainment are the ones that attract people to their state. Minnesota figured this out in the 70s and gave reciprocity to every state around them. And now look at Minneapolis and how Minneapolis is thriving because they picked off the talent from every state. LSU has a pretty unique goal in this. It's to keep the William Jewells from New Roads, but to go out and steal the Taylor Scotts from Texas. And bring them here and take their economic assets and bring them to Louisiana to stay as students, but also if we keep them as economic assets, we have just stolen a $100,000 investment out of the state of Texas. And if LSU hadn't stolen Taylor Scott, she said she would have gone to TCU or SMU. So we have 2 important goals that we must factor in to when we talk about building this state. We got to be great thieves of talent. And LSU is the best thief that we have in stealing bright minds and bringing them here and also doing the type of research that people want to do, whether it's building the next rocket boosters that are going to take the Mars rover at the Michoud plant down in south of New Orleans, or doing the health-related research that will get us out of being the last in everything, in obesity and childhood diabetes and incarceration. The research plays a critical role, and the people that do this research and the students we attract and the faculty we attract are indeed charged with doing this. So we welcome this plan, and I commend the commissioner and the chairman. And this plan is about a better Louisiana, and I think we ought to open our eyes to the world and make sure that we become one of those great talented places that the world looks to for innovation, but also we want students from all over. Just like those physicists at Oak Ridge Laboratories knew about LIGO, but they also came to us from somewhere else, and they are now building the next nuclear age. So thank you for this plan, and we look forward to working with the regents every step of the way. Thank you.
Chairman Shawbear, members of the board, Commissioner Reed, I've had an opportunity to be with you many times before, but never before on a day like today. August of 2001, Regent Levy, Regent McDonald, we were starting a new community college in the northeast part of the state at Louisiana Delta. August of 2001, we were approving the last of the great master plans that this body has approved. It was, at that time, one of the best in the nation. Since that time, we've meandered a bit. We understand why, but we're not looking back. Instead, today, in 2019, we have an opportunity to look forward. My hope is that 18 and 19 years from now, when people look back on August of 2019 and the plan that you, as the Board of Regents, approved, we will remember the day that Louisiana changed. In 2001, we didn't have a comprehensive two-year college system. Today, I'm proud to tell you, we are here, we are prepared, and we are ready to do our part. Our community and technical colleges have grown up in that last 18 years, and I could not be more proud of the great work going on from Bossier Parish Community College, to Sewello Technical Community College, to Nunez Community College, the college that's providing the workforce for America's rocket factory in Michoud. These are colleges that are standing up and doing what the people of Louisiana need. Louisiana Delta Community College, now the third largest college, two-year college in the state of Louisiana in enrollment and graduates. Who would have thought that in 2001? So here we are today, ready to answer the call. Commissioner Reed, we could not imagine a better leader than the commissioner that we have today. We're excited about this plan. There is something in this plan for everyone, for every institution represented at this table. And by the way, for the private institutions in this state as well. Every one of us have to engage in order to accomplish 60%. And the reality is, we must have more males graduating.
That's right.
We must have more people of color graduating. We must have more people from a Pell background that require assistance to be able to attend, but also to graduate. I cannot miss the opportunity to point out a couple of key words. The first is adults. Throughout this document, you see the word adults. The young people of this state are critically important. Don't misunderstand the message. But if we graduated every single kid who starts kindergarten in this August, and we graduated them from high school and from college, guess what? We wouldn't reach 60% by 2030. We find ourselves in a place where the adults of this state require our attention. They require policy. They require resources. They require the work that all of us do to ensure that adults have opportunities to attend and finish college. And by the way, yes, this is a board of post-secondary education. We all know that. But guess what? Just like we do at the LCTCS, we share a responsibility for the adult population that didn't finish high school.
That's right.
Let's be real clear. They are as big a part of this discussion as a group of 18-year-olds that will graduate in May. The adults in this state require our attention from a policy point of view and from a resource point of view. I'm also proud to see the word credentials used throughout this document. Yes, there was a time when it was about degrees. Yes, degrees are important, and I am darn proud of my degrees from Louisiana Tech, Dr. Henderson. But I'll tell you this, today it's about credentials.
That's right.
Today it's about a broadened definition of what matters in the economy. Yes, it's about skills, and yes, you want to put skills alongside degrees. But I'm thankful for those two words throughout this document. I'll finish with this. All 12 community and technical colleges, our board of supervisors, and every resource at the disposal of the LCTCS will focus on this plan for the next 11 years. And I can assure you, we will do our part along with our colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. Couldn't be more excited and proud of this plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much to each of you, Taylor, to Jim and King and Ray and Monty. We are so very grateful. As I mentioned, you know, we don't graduate one student, but these guys and this leadership and this student and Will, that's what we're all about. We're about focusing on our students. And so we are excited to have a great plan, but we need to operationalize the plan into our institutions and communities, and I know that you all will help us to make that happen. I couldn't have better partners in this work, and I'm so very thankful to each and every one of you. Thank you very much. Okay. Next, I want to invite our talent development partners to the table. Erin Bendeley from K-12, Marquita Walters, DCFS, Jimmy LeBlanc from Corrections, Susie Showen from LED. As you know, and as the governor mentioned, we see talent, we define talent in a broad way. And so we're interested in making sure that we're not just focused on our traditional K-12 pipeline, which is important, and our adults, but we're focused on the least of these and trying to make sure that every young person, young or young at heart in Louisiana, knows that we believe in them and we want to develop their talent. So I will turn it over to you all to share your observations. Erin?
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. Regent Schauber, members of the board, it's a pleasure to join you here today. Congratulations on getting to this point. We know that so much work has gone into this. I'm here representing Superintendent White, who wasn't able to join us today, representing that beginning section of the pipeline that we always talk about and that the master plan refers to, and that is early childhood extending through elementary and secondary education. But I first want to just commend the process that the Board of Regents has undertaken to get to this point. A lot of times, moments like this get unfortunately summarized as just updating a document, when actually it has represented many, many months of deep reflection, of analysis, a discussion of what's going well and where do we need to make improvements, and also consultation with a number of partners who make this work possible. So thank you for engaging in such a process, and it's been a real pleasure and something that we consider very important to be a part of. The master plan notes that together we have experienced some tremendous gains and steady progress across pretty much every indicator that we use to measure our work, whether it's looking at the test scores of our students on the LEAP, which is our state academic achievement test for K through 12, our graduation rates, which are now the highest that they have ever been in our state. We're one of the fastest growing states in the country with regard to students enrolling in advanced placement, getting college credit through the CLEP exam, registering for financial aid, and I could go on and on. So clearly we are on the right path. But as this document rightly notes, there's a lot of work left to be done. And as we think about that pipeline, we still have a lot of leaks in that pipeline that need to be repaired. And it's going to take the same types of partnerships that have led to the success that we've had in order to make that happen. And I just want to provide some examples. We know that these leaks occur as early as kindergarten, when our earliest learners show up at kindergarten not prepared to undertake the very foundational work that they need to be successful. They occur in elementary school when our students don't receive the foundational skills they need to read, when their disabilities and their learning challenges are not identified and not supported. The leaks occur throughout middle school when students are not able to master the more complex math skills that we continue to deal with and face as a state with many other states across the country. And at that time in their lives when their behavioral issues are starting to impact their educational experience, particularly for the many students that we have across our state that bring trauma to school with them. We have leaks that occur in high school when students who have fallen behind are just, for whatever reason, not catching up and not being provided the opportunities that we know are essential to help them to transition beyond high school into a post-secondary education and into the workforce. And finally, we know that as students do attempt to pursue post-secondary training beyond high school, that those that need safe, affordable, quality childcare too many times are not able to receive it. And we know how important it is to get those young adults into the workforce. These aren't challenges just for the Department of Education or just for Bessie. They are shared challenges. And we are so pleased that so many elements of this plan speak to these challenges and commit to addressing those. We're grateful that it commits to addressing them in a much greater way and a much more accelerated way going forward. And just to borrow a couple of quotes from the plan, it calls for a transition from a siloed, linear approach to education to one that creatively blurs the boundaries between K-12, PK-12, post-secondary education, and business and industry. It also calls on us to pull together as a single team. I think I've heard someone say that several times. We're excited to be on the team. We're committed to the cause. We pledge to continue working in close partnership with each and every one of you and the Board of Regents staff and our many partners here in the room. And congratulations on completing this new and improved version of our roadmap over the next several years. And we just thank you so much for your dedication to the work, your close partnership, and we're looking forward to reaching these goals together with you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Marquita Garner Walters, the Secretary of the Department of Children and Family Services. And some of you may be wondering what DCFS has to do with the Board of Regents. I think it was in Kim's opening days in her new role when she called to have the conversation about how we could work together and how we could partner. And so publicly, I would like to thank you, Dr. Hunter Reed, and this board for the opportunity to bring DCFS to the table and to be a partner in this collaboration, because it does take all of us. We say in our shop a lot, it truly does take a village to raise a child. We talked about a lot of issues in those early conversations, and two of them stand out to me that I'd like to highlight today. Louisiana just raised the age of foster care in this state from 18 to 21. That's a big deal for our kids. Only 3% of foster youth go to college. Our kids don't excel all the way through school and graduate on time like most other students do because of the trauma in their lives and because of the moves that go with them through the child welfare system. And so one of the core reasons we wanted to raise that age was to give those young people the opportunity to not only finish high school, but to find their way into secondary education. And so we're so excited about the post-secondary opportunities that our young people now have, and a huge tribute and thank you to the leadership team of your board, of the Board of Regents, who have adopted the 11 students that have graduated and are going to college and are entering college with a great big basket full of everything you need to go into a dorm. That's a big deal. That's a partnership that touches my heart.
Yes.
We also are very proud of the partnership with our community and technical system to be able to bring into the state a bucket of federal money that we have not tapped appropriately through the years, called SNAP Employment and Training Money. The SNAP program, the supplemental food, is the old food stamps label. If you're a person who is on the food stamp program and you are getting employment and training or any skill building that's going to lead you into one of these credentials that we talked about earlier, there is an ability to draw down some federal funds to reimburse those expenses. And we are thrilled that in the 3.5 years we've been here, we've brought in over $5 million in that with 8 sites, but we are ready to blow that up with the partnership with the community and technical system. And so those are just two of the ways that we are at the table being collaborators and partners. I just join my voice to all the other voices of saying congratulations for an audacious plan and the ability to just step out in faith and say, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to be with you every step of the way to do our part.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman, members, commissioners, good to be here today. I guess two things come to mind first, two first in my career, actually. One is we had a commissioner tour our prison at Dixon Correctional Institute, and I have there's a magazine in each one of you's folder there that I left you. It's a Straight and Low magazine that focused in on our visit to our tour. So that's the first. And the other is being at this table today. This is a first in the history of the Department of Corrections that we're at the table to the Board of Regents. I
can't tell you how excited we are to be a part of this, part of the master plan. The sub-cabinet has been unbelievable. I think it's so important to the collaboration that we're having in the sub-cabinet between the agencies. We don't realize how much we have in common until we sit down and start talking about the things that we can do together. I hope that data sharing will become a big part of this, because I think that is so important. 51% of the people that come into our system come in without high school degrees or high school diplomas, reading at about an 8th grade level. So our challenges are uphill, we know that, but we are doing some good things. And as the governor said earlier, 95% of the people that come into our system are coming home. They're coming back to our communities, and what do we want coming back to our communities? It's imperative that we provide education, and we know that education reduces recidivism, and we know that reducing recidivism reduces crime and enhances public safety and saves the taxpayers money. And so this is a vital part of what we do in our department, and we will continue to build on that. And just to give you an example, in the last 2.5 years, there's a Pell Grant pilot that's going on, and we've jumped into that. We have 143 inmates that have earned their associate degrees in the last 2 years.
Wow.
13 have earned bachelor degrees. And again, we are a big part of promoting the continuation of Pell Grants in our prison system. That needs to continue. It is so important. College isn't for everyone. We know that. We have some excellent programs with our technical college system. We're going towards industry-based certifications. To give you an idea on that, we averaged 1,300 students in a class on a daily basis. Last year, 18-19 fiscal year, there were 1,934 certificates of industry-based certification awarded. That, to me, is a major step in the right direction. And I think we all know industry-based certifications is the way to look at this, and we're excited about that. And I know you've read about what we're doing with the inmate tutors and monitors at Angola, and the things that we're doing there, improving our operation. Just to close, because I know we don't have much time at the mic here, Commissioner, I can't tell you how much I appreciate being here, how much we appreciate your sincere, and I can tell you dedicated towards our department and what we're doing, and we're so happy to be at the table. And again, thank you guys for what you do day in and day out, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Jim.
Chairman Chabert, Commissioner Reed, and members of the board, I am also very grateful to be here. I'm very grateful to be here with my colleagues. I bring regards from Secretary Don Pearson. I am Susie Showen. I'm the Director of Workforce Initiatives for LED Fast Start, which is the Workforce Development Division of Louisiana Economic Development. And we exist specifically because LED recognizes the vital importance of workforce development and talent development. We're not just talking about short-term training here, although we are talking about short-term training, but everything all the way up to the PhD level that everybody in this room works so hard on is part of our success strategy. It's part of our workforce development and talent development priorities. And I really am thrilled to be here. Our goal is to create the kind of vibrant economy that provides opportunities for all of our citizens. We've worked very hard on growing jobs in the state, but that's not as meaningful as it should be to the well-being of our communities if it's not our citizens that are prepared to take those jobs. And if that pipeline doesn't include those people who are historically disenfranchised, it is also not of the maximum benefit to our communities. We see so much in this master plan that we're really very happy to see. And I want to say, again, Chairman Chabert started us off with the quote from Kathleen Blanco, and Governor Edwards reiterated it as well. If we're going to address poverty here in Louisiana, this is how we do it. What's in this plan is how we do it. It's part of the solution along with the solutions offered by the other people here at the table. It's part of an integrated story on what we're working on here in Louisiana. I want to call out a couple of things that I'm specifically very happy to see included in the report. One is the emphasis on work-based learning. We all hear a lot from young people, I know, who say, every job I'm applying for requires job experience. How will I ever get that experience if I can't get a job, right? We also hear from employers saying, I've got people with these fancy credentials coming in and they don't know how to do anything. They won't show up at work on time. They don't understand how to talk to people. They can't write a professional email. A major part of the solution to both of these problems is work-based learning, and we're thrilled to see that be included here. And I also want to talk a little bit about the educational attainment goals. These are brilliantly conceived educational attainment goals. I've seen a lot of states come up with educational attainment plans that have the unintended consequence, or could have the unintended consequence, of encouraging our institutions to churn out a whole bunch of people with cheap and worthless educational credentials. That's not what we're talking about here, because we're talking about credentials of value that are relevant to the economy, that will provide our people the opportunity to find good, rewarding work in the communities where they choose to live, and that will allow them to raise their families in those communities. When we talk about addressing poverty, this is how we do it. This is a really terrific goal. But then finally, in a very large sense, what I am most excited about when it comes to this plan is everybody in this room here. We benefit, every one of us, when everybody in the state is working in concert to solve the hardest problems that lie in front of us. And we as a department benefit significantly from this level of collaboration as well. You heard our 4 public higher education leaders talk about how well they get along. We rely on that, and it is an irreproducible economic development asset. Nobody in the country can compete with us on that. When we've got our education leaders who not only know each other, but actually like each other and have a relationship. It's extraordinarily valuable. And also, I spend a lot of time with many people in this room going to national conferences and convenings and so on. And we're often asked for our secret sauce when it comes to educational innovation across the board. And we're always happy to share it because, again, it's irreproducible, because it's the fact that we all know each other and like each other and sit down at the table together. So I really want to thank Commissioner Reed for bringing everybody together in such a powerful way to help us work together to make Louisiana better. I appreciate it.
We could not have better, stronger talent development partners than each of you. Thank you all so much for your commitment and for being here today and for your good work. Finally, we have 2 external partners who are fabulous in this work and also passionate about this work. Barry Irwin from Council for a Better Louisiana, Keisha Smith from Education Trust. If you guys will come to the table, and then I'll give my chairman the mic. Thank you both for being here. They also participated when we were developing this plan from the very beginning, that's right, and shared a panel discussion with our board as well. So thank you for coming back.
Good afternoon. I'm Keisha Smith. I am the Louisiana State Director for the Education Trust. And we are a nonprofit, and we focus on closing educational opportunity gaps, particularly for students of color and students from low-income families. Our work is also based in a belief that a strong education system is vital to the health of our economy, our community, and the sustainability of the state. So I do want to applaud Dr. Reed, her office, and the board for the hard work they've done on the state master plan and the commitment to equity and excellence in Louisiana. For us, we're particularly excited about the commitment to expanding college and career opportunities through dual enrollment. As stated in the master plan, the Georgetown Center said that by 2020, 56% of Louisiana jobs will require education beyond high school. And so to me, that tells us that obtaining a post-secondary credential is more important than ever. We also heard earlier that we want to steal talent, right? And so I want to add to that and say, and we want to grow our own talent. And I think dual enrollment and CTE is the opportunity to do so. Lastly, I want to appreciate Dr. Reed and her office, we worked alongside them to engage stakeholders, including service providers and community advocates. And I just think it's so important, especially here as we've seen leaders standing together. I think it's important to acknowledge the office and Dr. Reed's commitment to hearing from folks that's on the ground, because that's really important too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. I'm Barry Irwin. I'm president of Council for a Better Louisiana, and really pleased to be here today and really excited for you with a new master plan. I can remember Bob Levy and I go back pretty long ways. He is a former chairman of our board as well as yours, and I guess it was 10 or 11 years ago that we were talking through that master plan, which I think has served the state well, but it's certainly time for us to move forward, and we're really excited about that. It was also really exciting earlier this year. Cable has always had a big piece in our agenda about education attainment. And it always seemed to me that while it seemed like it was a priority in our state in a way, it was really more around the margins, and we weren't really taking a headlong, fight towards trying to reach that. And this master plan does that, and to me that's really exciting. And when we sat down with Dr. Reed, I guess it was probably in February or March maybe of earlier this year, while we were trying to work on some of our agenda, this came first and foremost from the regions, and I thought that was great. As many of you probably know, our organization, Cable, has partnered with the Public Affairs Research Council and the Committee of 100 for Economic Development on an election initiative called Reset Louisiana's Future. And we've been working on that for quite a bit. But one of the things that was very important to me was that while we had, various planks in there on education, fiscal policies, infrastructure, et cetera, that we had something in there that was, I hope, a strong piece on this attainment goal and trying to mirror and align ourselves together with the goals that y'all are setting. And I'm very pleased that we have been able to do that. Dr. Chabert, and I call him doctor because I've known him a long time and he's so wise, made a point about the cuts to higher education, and those are very real and they have happened. I guess if there's good news, what's happened is with tuition and fees, we've been able to mitigate some of the cost of that in terms of the institutions themselves. It's led to basically, I think, the survival of some of those institutions, and that's a positive thing. But those things also come with a cost, and part of the cost there has been access and opportunity and possibility of continuing to threaten our efforts to actually close our equity gaps that we feel are so important and that we need to try and change. So one of the things in our reset agenda is to try to say, as we go forward with reinvestment in higher education, and that certainly does need to happen, one of the key priorities there does have to be in that area where we're talking about student financial aid, some of the innovative things that Dr. Sullivan is doing at the LCTCS in terms of the adult population, to try, which has very little access to student financial aid because they're not students anymore, to try and make sure that those are some of the priorities as we begin to reinvest. And lastly, I will say that we have been very active on this reset front. We've had 10 meetings around the state with legislative candidates, and primarily these are new people. These are not the incumbents. These are these new people who are coming in a wave because of term limits, and that was the target audience we were trying to reach. And one of the things we were trying to do there is impress upon them some of these issues, and this one in particular, about how important it is and why it's something that they need to embrace now, but also know that it's going to come up before them, some of these issues, as they get elected and they have to deal with things as legislators. We're also just happened to be able to release today and post on our website a survey questionnaire, the responses from gubernatorial candidates on a variety of our reset issues, and this is again one of the issues that is in that gubernatorial survey, and I commend that to you to take a look at. And lastly, we have some debates coming up in the gubernatorial race, going to be on the UL Lafayette campus, so we're trying to engage higher education at all levels, and that'll be September 26th. And again, we hope to talk about these issues. And I say that only in closing because I hope this helps demonstrate the commitment that we have to attainment and what we're here to talk about today. Our group, Cable, is totally committed to this, and we want to see it through. Elections are great opportunities to raise awareness and talk about things that are important in our state and get the attention of candidates, but elections are only a means to an end. And the end has to be what we're here to talk about today, reaching this goal, improving this education attainment, and making the difference in the lives of the citizens of our state that we know that we can make. And we hope to be committed external partners with you throughout that process. And thanks very much for that opportunity.
Thank you so much, Keisha and Barry. We're grateful. Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Regents, as you know, we are fully committed to this work. It has been an honor for me to have an opportunity to hit the ground running and work collaboratively with everyone that you saw here today and so many others to try to make sure that we position Louisiana in a way that we can transform our state. We know that it is within our power to get that done, and we are fully committed to that work. But certainly I know that this is not a solo act. I want to thank the staff that are here, the amazing staff who are committed to this work as well. If you would help me give them a round of applause. They are fantastic, and we've already been working on action plans to move this master plan forward. I have some good news to share. Today it will be announced that Louisiana is one of 6 states that have been selected by SHIO and to be a part of an attainment academy. It will help the states to take their master plans and create action that allows them to reach their goals. And so I'm so excited. The timing is good for us. It's great news for us to again be recognized nationally as part of a movement, if you will, to say we want to develop talent in our state. Finally, I want to thank one individual on our staff who really made the master plan come to life. Carrie, if you'll come forward. So, as you know, it's good to have a vision, but it's more important to have good words on a piece of paper that you can actually get done. And so I want Carrie to open this. This is going to go into her office as a reminder of this labor of love that she has taken on for us at the Board of Regents. If you'll show everyone, it is a glass version of the master plan. Thank you. And with that, I joyfully turn the microphone over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Thank you, everybody. God, look at them shirts. Just love them. Members, you have received a copy of the master plan, and at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion.
I move to adopt the master plan.
Moved and second.
Mr. Chairman, can we take a roll call vote since this is such an important item?
Yes.
Absolutely. Would you please call the roll?
Regent Chabert?
Yes.
Regent David?
Yes.
Regent Ewing?
Yes.
Regent Jewell?
Yes.
Regent Levy?
Yes.
Regent McDonald?
Yes.
Regent Meyer?
Yes.
Regent Perez?
Yes.
Regent Pryor?
Yes.
Regent Seal?
Yes.
Regent Solomon?
Yes.
Regent Temple?
Yes.
Regent Tennyson?
Yes.
Regent Weil?
Yes.
Regent Wyatt. All right, it passes.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Commissioner, for all the work you and your staff have done. It's amazing. Today was one of the greatest days that I've ever had serving on any kind of board in higher education. I got up at 2 o'clock this morning. I read the report. I went back to sleep at 4. I woke up at 5. I read it again, and I kept it on the front seat of the car with me driving here this morning. It's just you just pour your heart and your soul into this thing, and to see where we were and where we have come to in such a short time is just one of the most amazing things that I've seen serving on any board of any kind.
And Marty, I've seen the difference in the presentations at the board meetings from the top through everybody, through the leaders of the staff, through other people of the staff. Just an enthusiasm here that's contagious.
Yep.
And I was so happy that vote passed because that would have been a really awkward plaque for Carrie to have in her office.
Thank you. We now move to public comments. Stephanie, has anyone signed up for comments or anyone has a public comment?
There are no public comments.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to the next item on the agenda. Members, you received a copy of the minutes from our June meeting. We have a motion to approve. Moved by Regent Wild, second by Regent Seal. Any discussion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item we have is the committee reports. If I can have a motion to take the committee reports up in global. And before I say that, if anyone cares to take anything outside of global, let us know and we'll pull it out. If not, I'll entertain a motion to move by Regent Seal, second by Regent Levy. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Hey, we done? Good job. I think we're very close to, boy, I'm double teamed here. The thing I want to say is I like to say after all the meetings, let's never forget, it's all about the students. And keep that to your heart. Members, thank y'all so much for your time and your patience. Today was such a great day for the state of Louisiana. Motion to adjourn, moved by Vice Chairman Temple, second by Blake David. Any opposition? Hearing none, motion carries. Bye-bye.
Yeah, come on, shake your pump. Awesome.
Hey,
Oh, great job.
People be talking about my power,